Hello, 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 it's me, I'm the problem, hello. You know what? I refuse to accept that anymore. I'm not the problem anymore. It's not me. I'm not the issue. This shit is the issue. I didn't do this. I didn't make this a thing. I'm just being the helpful, responsible goblin making content nobody wants to watch and nobody wants to see because nobody wants to deal with this shit because it's shit that we shouldn't have to deal with, but we have to, and I'm here doing my best to not cry. I remembered my Tim Pool hat this time though. So, are you guys ready to get into this? I haven't eaten yet today. I kind of just forgot. I kind of just forgot. So, you know, whatever. And I can't eat while I'm reading because that would be obnoxious and annoying. And like this paperwork's already bad enough as it is. Sip. So one thing I think is kind of funny, like as much as we like, I'm limiting to talking about the company and like the lolcowy bullshit to once a week, so to Mondays basically, unless something happens that's like worthy of a Tuesday, right? So, you know, but the has Puck eaten? I think so, yeah. So he what are they saying? So I like I would love to see one of the company try to try to cover something like this. I think that would be very funny because I don't think they'd be able to. I think it'd be funny. I just think it'd be funny. The company is worthy for Mondays. Yeah, I like calling it Moo Mondays for lolcow. Moo Mondays is pretty fucking funny. And it also lets me like not have to make difficult, complicated content because they're like the laziest content for me ever. There's just I don't even have to like pick out a video. I don't have to be like, oh well, this one's fine. I gotta go pick something specific. No, I can just pick any video and it's good. I know it's gonna be full of stupid garbage. It doesn't matter. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, are you guys ready to get into this? I'm an hour later than I normally am today because I was busy doing some other shit. Which is one of the reasons why I forgot to eat. Alright. Section 2. So we are on page 119 of the PDF. We are officially on section 2. So we've been through the acknowledgements and who everybody is and their credentials. Their stated credentials. And then, like, the acknowledgements, and then we've read section 1, subsection 1, 2, and 3. So chapter 1, 2, and 3 in section 1. We are now on chapter 1 of section 2. So, for anybody following along at home, there's a link to this PDF in the description if you're interested in following along at home, and if you're not, or if you need reference to it later, whatever. On the plus side, this video will have transcripts, so if you're ever looking for a quick reference for something, you can use these videos as a quick reference. So, lolcows just hook themselves up to the content milking machine. It's true. Alright, so section 2, the common defense. Well, the lives of Americans... Oh god, I forgot how awful this was. Well, there's a reason why I only do 2 to 3 of these a week. Well, the lives of Americans are affected in noteworthy ways, for better or worse, by each part of the executive branch. The inherent importance of national defense and foreign affairs makes the Department of Defense and State first among equals. Originating in the George Washington administration, the War Department, as it was then known, was headed by Henry Knox, America's chief artillery officer in the Revolutionary War. Thomas Jefferson, the primary author. How old were the Founding Fathers? I feel like I remember reading that they were not, like, they're not very old. Like, the Founding Fathers were basically, like, rebellious teenagers. And they would not be impressed with Congress as it is today due to that act alone. Thomas Jefferson, the primary author of the Declaration of Independence, was the Secretary of State. Despite such long and storied histories, neither department is currently living up to its standards, and the success of the next presidency will be determined in part by whether they can be significantly improved in short order. I like the idea that, like, the Department of, like, I think everybody agrees that the DOJ could be doing better because, like, for very different reasons. Like, some are like, oh my god, the January 6 people are in jail, or some of them, and other people are like, oh my god, some of the January 6 people aren't in jail. So, like, everybody's kind of pissy, I guess. Quote, ever since our founding, end quote, former acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller writes in Chapter 4, quote, Americans have understood that the surest way to avoid war is to be prepared for it in peace, end quote. Yet I feel like America hasn't been at peace and not involved in some kind of war in a really long time. Like, a really long time. Like, am I wrong about that? Yet the Department of Defense, quote, is a deeply troubled institution, end quote. It has emphasized leftist politics over military readiness. What? Quote, recruiting was the worst in 2022 that has been in 2 generations. Yeah, and what was happening in 2022? I wonder. The plandemic. And, quote, the Biden administration's profoundly unserious equity agenda and vaccine mandates, have taken a serious toll, end quote. Additionally, Miller writes that, quote, the atrophy of our defense industrial base, the impact of sequestration. Like, I recognize sequester. I think this is pronounced sequestration, but I could be wrong. And effective disarmament by many U.S. allies have exacted a high toll on America's military, end quote. Moreover, our military has adopted a risk-averse culture. Think of the masked soldiers, sailors, and airmen, rather than instilling the rewarding courage in thought and action. What? What? They wore masks, therefore they're less scary? Why did that go away? Oh, I hate that. Oh, my eyes. The good news is that most enlisted personnel and most officers, especially below the rank of general or admiral, continue to be patriotic defenders of liberty. Yeah, well, we know how Trump feels about people who serve. Take a drink. Started the whole thing with a butt. Hello. Let's see how long you can put up with this shit. Yeah. Profoundly unserious effort at preventing mass death. So unserious. I know, right? But this is now Barack Obama's general officer corpse. That is why that's not a sentence. What is the this you're referring to at this? That is why Russ Vought argues in Chapter 2 that the National Security Council, quote, should rigorously review all general and flag officer promotions to prioritize the core roles and responsibilities of the military over social engineering and non-defense related matters, including climate change, critical race theory, manufactured extremism, and other polarizing politics that weaken our armed forces and discourage our nation's finest men and women from enlisting. Yet treating gay people like shit in the military is going to prevent gay people from wanting to join the military, so maybe stop politicizing it? Is that what you're saying? I feel like that's not the conclusion you're coming to, but sure. Ensuring that many of America's best and brightest continue to choose military service is essential. Quote, well, one of the ways you can also encourage people to join the military is not be in an active war all the time that people don't, particularly a war that people don't believe in. And America has a habit of being in wars that the people aren't for, like they're not interested in. Tell me you know nothing about the military without telling me you know nothing about the military. I know, right? Quote, by far the most significant danger, end quote, to America from abroad, Miller writes, quote, is China, end quote. That communist regime, quote, is undertaking a historic military buildup, end quote, which, quote, why are you doing this? Please stop. Why are you, like, quoting and then chunking and then quoting and then, like, 2 words and then chunking and then quoting and then chunking and then quoting and then chunking again? What are you doing? Oh my god. Oh, maybe our finest people don't want to serve because we keep getting into wars. Oh, yeah, no. As an outsider and just a tiny little guy, maybe. Maybe. People who have career options that will not get them killed tend to opt for those ones. Weird, I know, right? They failed middle school. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Okay, I'm okay. All right. All right, I'm gonna try this one again. This paragraph's terrible. Okay. Quote, by far the most significant danger, end quote, to America from abroad, Miller writes, quote, is China, end quote. That communist regime, quote, is undertaking a historic military buildup, end quote, which, quote, could result in a nuclear force that matches or exceeds America's own nuclear arsenal, end quote. Resisting China's expansionist aims, quote, requires a denial defense, end quote, whereby we make, quote, the subordination of Taiwan and other U.S. allies in Asia prohibitively difficult, end quote. However, Miller adds, quote, why is the C in brackets? Critically, the United States must be able to do this at a level of cost and risk that Americans are willing to bear, end quote. I don't know what this is trying to tell me besides America wants to go to do a Cold War with China to prevent China from building a military, I guess. What the fuck is this paragraph? Thank you. Yeah, I don't understand what this paragraph is. It's terrible. Who wrote this one again? Who was this? Who you be? Who did this you do? Oh my god, the name's not there. The name's not at the bottom. Who did this? I don't know who did this. Maybe we'll find out at the end. Spoilers, I guess. Ugh. The best gauge of such willingness. I mean, freeing Taiwan from China would be a good start, I guess. But again, I don't think that that's what the C is. This person is correcting a typo. You think so? I believe it. America's best and brightest aren't conservatives, so the Heritage Foundation gets the scraps of academia. That weird thing that they like to admit and complain about, that people with education are more left-leaning. The best gauge of such willingness is congressional approval. Really? The best way to gauge whether or not Americans approve of something is whether or not Congress approves of it? I don't think that's true. The Republican Party regularly votes against things that the people that support the Republican Party say that they want. Like, all the time. Same with the Democratic Party as well. I'm not saying that both don't do this, but this is definitely like a major problem that Republicans have, because specifically a lot of those things are things that the Democratic Party would agree with. So like that's just a fucking lie. That's like, this is just bullshit right here, right? I mean, maybe ideally, but not like, this whole thing is them talking about how government as is isn't currently working, so they need to take some kind of extreme measures to overthrow it and turn it into whatever a Trump dictatorship, right? So it's odd to me to say that they're referencing the current established government to tell what the people want, even though it's supposedly the president's job, which is what they said earlier. It doesn't make any sense. Small government, except when they want to tell women what's best for them. I know, right? Accordingly, we must rediscover and adhere to the Founding Fathers' wise division of war powers, whereby Congress, the most representative and deliberative branch, decides whether to go to war, and the executive, the most energetic and decisive branch, decides how to carry it out once begun. As the past 75 years have repeatedly demonstrated in different ways, from Korea to Vietnam to Iraq to Afghanistan, we depart from our constitutional design at our peril. Yeah, war people didn't want, war people didn't want, war people didn't want. The closest one to having people want Iraq is propaganda, and the American people were lied to. That's as close as you get to having a war that the American people actually wanted to participate in. The last time America wanted to participate in a war like that the people wanted to participate in was probably World War II, and even that was pushing it because America didn't join World War II until like the last chunk. So, like, pick up a history textbook, assholes. Not pick up a history textbook from another country. I think that would be very enlightening. Miller writes that we, quote, must treat... Why are we quoting this Miller guy? There's no justification in here as to why we're talking about this guy. He's just referencing stuff in chapter 2, and I assume it means chapter 2 that we're about to read. So I don't know. Are we reading a foreword? Maybe. This is so poorly laid out. It's so bad. Oh, the Gulf War, yeah. Miller writes that we, quote, must treat missile defense as a top priority, end quote. Ensure that more of our weapons are made in America, reform the budgeting process, and sustain, quote, an efficient and effective counterterrorism enterprise. You know, if you want to build weapons and stuff, you need steel. What was the thing that Trump did the first thing he went into office? Put tariffs on steel coming from Canada. Like, you're like buddies, because every time you fuckers join a war, we're like, I guess we have to support because of our agreements, and we're not gonna renege on that, but can you please stop shooting our guys? We would appreciate it if Americans would stop shooting Canadians. That'd be lovely. Big preach, bro. Canadians were pissed. I don't know if you guys know that. Canada was not happy. Across all of our efforts, we must keep in mind that part of peace through strength is knowing when to fight. I feel like this guy is just throwing platitudes around for the military, which is kind of gross and disrespectful to the military. But, I mean, and the people they're talking to, but sure, whatever. As George Washington warned nearly 2 centuries ago, we must continue to be on guard against being drawn into conflicts that do not justify great loss of American treasure or significant shedding of American blood. Has there been any significant length of time that America has not been at war with someone? I feel like no. I off the top of my head, I can't think of any like considerable length of time that America was not at war. And no, the Cold War doesn't count. At the same time, we must be prepared to defend our interests and meet challenges where and when they arise. Sure. An effective diplomatic corps is central to defending our interests and influencing world events. I would like to point out, by the way, I am not good at history. Like, I don't have a library of historical knowledge, so I could be wrong. But like, I don't mean to say that because I can't remember one, it's not true. I mean to say that I can't think of any off the top of my head as not an American citizen. So, I mean, you know, I think since leaving Afghanistan, we're doing a decent job not being actively at war on paper. Isn't America involved in Ukraine? Oh, I guess you haven't. Yeah, I guess you guys haven't sent troops. So I guess since pulling out of Afghanistan, you've been arguably at peace? I guess. I don't know if that's true, but, you know, and that's been, what, 2 years? Is that 2 or 4 years? I wouldn't call 4 years a significant amount of time, though. Maybe I'm wrong. I would call, like, a significant amount of time between, like, you'd have to hit at least 10 years, in my opinion. Anyway, whereas most military personnel have had leftist priorities imposed from above, The problem at state comes largely from within. The left usually doesn't want to go to war, though. They're usually the opposition to that. Former State Department Director of Policy Planning, Kyron Skinner, writes in Chapter 6, large, again, with the capital L in brackets like that. Does this fucker just not know how, whatever. Quote, large swaths of the State Department's workforce are left-wing and predisposed to disagree with a conservative president's policy, agenda, and vision, end quote. She adds that the department possesses a, quote, belief that it is an independent institution that knows what is best for the United States, set its own foreign policy, and does not need direction from an elected president, end quote. A view that does not align with the Constitution. Imagine a country so big having more than, and made up of so many states having more than one opinion about the direction of the country. You ever think that maybe part of the problem that America faces is they're not a proper democracy and they're not a proper country because they are actually a collective of what ostensibly they try to adopt as operating as individual countries within themselves, right? Like that's sort of the vision, the idea that America kind of sets forth, right? Like the rights of the states, and then it's the states. Like America doesn't even have a fucking title. Like, your country doesn't have a name, guys. Have you guys noticed that? America doesn't have a country name. You are the United States of Middle North America. America is just, you're taking out the Middle North America because it takes too long to say. Because America is a continent, north and south. That's not, your country doesn't have a name. What are you doing? Yeah, there is a lot of civil unrest, I guess, in America right now. I would probably agree with that. The solution to this problem is a strong political leadership. Skinner writes, quote, the next administration must take swift and decisive steps to reforge the department to lean and functional diplomatic machine that serves the president and thereby the American people. This is also advocating for a war with China, by the way. So, I don't know. Yeah, South America is a continent. Correct. Is that what I said? Because South America isn't a country. South America is a continent, and it's got, like... Did I say country? I misspoke, if that's what I said. That's my bad. I meant continent. Because South America is made up of a bunch of smaller countries within it. The only place that has a country and a continent taking up the same amount of space is Australia, right? Because Australia is the continent and Australia is the country. It's because America's name is number one. Yeah, oh yeah. I like that. Yeah, I'm not sure if America's actually on the brink of a civil war or not. I think a lot of people like to say that, but I don't know how true that actually is for people actually starting to go to, like, I mean, there definitely is a class war, and there's definitively, like propaganda wars going on between individuals and, like, boycotting, and so, like, economic type stuff. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe a discussion for the tavern. Put a pin in that, and when we get to the tavern where there's people that are smarter than me around to have a discussion about it, definitely do that, because I think that's an interesting conversation to be like, well, what is social media and what is, like, actual people on the ground, right? That's a bold statement for someone within drone strike distance. Oh. Okay. Period, because take a drink. Actually, I think that might be proper usage, but I'm doing it anyway. Because the Senate has been extraordinarily lax in fulfilling its constitutional obligation to confirm presidential appointees, she recommends putting appointees into acting roles until such time as the Senate confirms them. But that's not true. They haven't been lax. They just didn't approve of your guys' people, like your dude's people. That was only one problem they had one time because you suck. It's not them being lax. It's you putting forward shitty appointees that they didn't like. checks and balances thing. So what one person doesn't end up with way too much power, like a dictatorship or a monarchy, which was one of the things the Civil War was fighting for, to make America free in the first place. Wacky. It's weird to hear these people citing the founding fathers and what they wanted while advocating for the thing that the founding fathers were fighting against and what they became the founding fathers over in the first place. It's very strange. Skinner writes that that state should also stop skirting the Constitution's treaty-making requirements and stop enforcing, quote, agreements as treaties. It should encourage more trade with allies, particularly with Great Britain. What did I just say? And less with adversaries, period, and, take a drink. It should implement a, quote, sovereign Mexico policy. As our neighbor, quote, has functionally lost its sovereignty to muscular criminal cartels that effectively run the country. I'm sorry, is this now advocating that America goes to war with Mexico to free Mexico from the cartels? That might actually be something that a president could run on. Like, that you might be able to convince the American people to go to war with not Mexico and the Mexican people, but with the Mexican cartels that have overrun their country. Like, I could see that. I can see the marketing. Right? The U.S. has a history of violating its treaties. Oh, you mean like it's one with France that helped them win the Civil War in the first place? That one? Like that one? No. I could 100%. You want the American people to like get your fucking your military going, get like you're making like shit again. The problem is I don't know if that would even work either. Only because I feel like there's too many American people that have too much education, so they're like a little bit too smart for that. Like, I don't see Gen X buying this bullshit. You know what I mean? In Africa, Skinner writes, the U.S., quote, should focus on core security, economic and human rights, end quote, rather than impose radical abortion and pro-LGBT initiatives. Impose? Okay. Divisive symbols such as the rainbow flag or Black Lives Matter flag have no place next to the stars and stripes at our embassies. Divisive? You mean other flags about freedom and lives and liberty don't belong next to the stars and stripes because you guys are about oppression? When it comes to China, Skinner writes that, quote, a policy of, quote, again, compete where we must but cooperate where we can, end smaller, quote, ellipses, has demonstrably failed, end quote. How is anyone supposed to read this? The People's Republic of China, the PRC, quote, aggressive behavior, end quote, she writes, quote, can only be curbed through external pressure, end quote. Efforts to protect or excuse China must stop. She observes, quote, many, capital M again, were quick to dismiss even the possibility that COVID escaped from a Chinese research laboratory, end quote. Meanwhile, Skinner writes, quote, bracketed G, quote, global leaders, including President Joe Biden, ellipses, have tried to normalize or even laud China's behavior, end quote. She adds, quote, stop doing this. Quote, in some cases, these voices, like global corporate giants BlackRock and Disney, end quote, dash, or the National Basketball Association, NBA, dash, quote, directly benefit from doing business with Beijing. I'm Gen Z. I love avocado and toast. Yeah, fair enough. Hey, listen, if you like avocado and toast, you do you. Have avocado and toast. I don't think people should be I do not think the people should be denied avocado and toast, particularly if America wants to present itself as one of the richest countries in the world. Its people should be allowed and nay should be provided and deserve as a right avocado and toast. But that's just my opinion. Former Vice President of the United States Agency for Global Media, Mora Namdar, writes in Chapter 8 that we need... Why are we talking about fucking Chapter 8, dude? We're on Chapter... I hate you. Can you get to the point? Like, this is so rambling. That we need to have people working for USAMG who actually believe in America rather than allowing the agencies to function as anti-American taxpayer-funded entities that parrot our adversaries' propaganda and talking points. Can you just go back to funding PBS and making like cool educational shows and Sesame Street? Former acting Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security Ken Cuccinelli says in Chapter 5 that the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, a creation of the George W. Bush era, should be closed as it has needless additional bureaucracy and expense without corresponding benefit. He recommends that it be replaced with a new, quote, standalone border immigration agency at the cabinet level, and that the remaining parts of the DHS be distributed among other departments. I mean, having less government spying on American citizens is probably a good idea, but I don't think that's what you're suggesting. Former Chief of Staff for the Director of National Intelligence, Dustin Carmack, writes in Chapter 7 that the U.S. intelligence community is too inclined to look at the rearview mirror, engage in, quote, groupthink, and an overly cautious approach aimed at personal approval rather than at offering the most accurate, unvarnished intelligence for the benefit of the country. Period. And take a drink. I should have bought beer. And in Chapter 9, former acting Deputy Administrator of the U.S. Agency for International Development, Max Primorak, asserts that these are villain names. These are villain names made up for a book. Asserts that the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, must be reformed, writing, quote, the Biden administration has deformed the agency by treating it as a global platform to pursue overseas a divisive political and a cultural agenda that promotes abortion, climate extremism, gender radicalism, and interventions against perceived systematic racism. Oh, you mean human rights? And UN obligations and the Paris Accords, all things that your guy was fucking laughed out of for being a fucking weenie. If the recommendations in the following chapter are adopted, what Skinner says about the State Department could be true for other parts of the federal government's national security and foreign policy apparatus. The next conservative president has the opportunity to restructure the making and execution of U.S. defense and foreign policy and reset the nation's role in the world. If they had it this time coming up, they had it last time and didn't do anything or any of these things with it. So why should you? Why? The recommendations outlined in this section provide guidance on how the next president should use the federal government's vast resources to do just that. Page 122. 4. Department of Defense, Christopher Miller. So this is now... Okay, so that was the foreword for Section 2. This is now Chapter 1 of Section 2. Or Chapter 4 overall, I guess. Department of Defense. The Constitution requires the federal government to, quote, provide for the common defense, end quote. It asserts to Congress that the authority to, quote, raise and support armies, end quote, and, quote, to quote, provide and maintain a navy, end quote, and specifies that the president is, quote, commander-in-chief, end quote, of Americans' armed forces. Ever since our founding, Americans have understood that the surest way to avoid war is to be prepared for it in peace. But when deterrence fails, we must fight and win. The Department of Defense, DoD, is the largest part of our federal government It has almost 3 million people serving in uniform or in a civilian capacity throughout the world and consumes approximately $850 billion annually, more than 50% of our government's discretionary spending. Hey, listen, I'm only drinking tea. I should have got beer, but I'm only drinking tea. Every time I take a drink, you do not have to. You also do not have to drink anything that has alcohol in it or just drink water. That's totally fine too. This is a really good way if you're trying to meet a daily water intake requirement. This is a good way to do it. The DoD is also a deeply troubled institution. Oh, yeah. Historically, the military has been one of America's most trusted institutions, but years of sustained misuse, a two-tiered culture of accountability that shields senior officers and officials while exposing junior officers and soldiers in the field, wasteful spending. Oh, I'm sorry, you mean having rich folk decide what poor people go to war for? That thing? Wasteful spending, wildly shifting security policies, exceedingly poor discipline in program execution, and, most recently, the Biden administration's profoundly unserious equity agenda and vaccine mandates have taken a serious toll. Sure, I'd love to see the stats on that. I think a citation needed that. Oh, yeah, we should write that down. We can citation needed that. Let's add it to the board. Unserious equity in military equals harm to military overall. And that's on page 123. When a citation needed that bitch. Let's go. Bonk onto the wall. Look at this wall. This is getting a little silly, don't you think? A little bit silly. I'm just, you know what? I'm just glad it wasn't that big when we were still like peeking through page 100. We're getting there, dude. Unreal, unbelievable, unreasonable. Equity agenda, is that like trying to make sure that people don't fire someone specifically because they're black or something? I think so. I'm gonna have to look up what the agenda actually is, because they also didn't citation that, so I don't know, but we're just gonna a little citation needed on that one. So every time I'm running one of these things down, it's like, this is something we need to look up later. So I have a whole list. So once we're done this, we're going to start citation needing it. I was also told that I should read through Agenda 47 or something like that. So I guess we'll probably get to that one day. Our disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, our impossibly muddled China strategy, the growing involvement of senior military officers in the political arena, and deep confusion about the purpose of our military are clear signals of a disturbing decay and markers of a dangerous decline of our nation's capabilities and will. Maybe it's because your people are fucking starving and losing housing and aren't able to get by, and you're spending shitloads of money on military while telling them to go fuck themselves. That might be your problem. And in wars that they don't want to be in. Maybe that's your problem. Maybe it's that, and not treating your military officials and junior officers like shit. Additionally, more than 100,000 Americans die annually in large measure because of illicit narcotics flows. How many died of COVID in America? More than 4 times as many people in 1 year as we lost. More than 4 times as many people in 1 year as we lost in our 20-year war against Al Qaeda. We also are witnessing a transformation of the character of war. The The democratization of technology and the collapse of time and space require dramatic collapse of time and space. I know what they mean, but that's just really funny. The way it's worded in the context, it's we are also witnessing the trend. This sounds like a script, right? This sounds like a script for like a movie, like the opening of a movie, where you just say, in the year, let's say, in the year 3025, humanity is at war with an alien species. And amongst the trials of just fighting with such an advanced race, we are also witnessing a transformation in the character of war. The democratization of technology and the collapse of time and space require dramatic, thoughtful changes to how we defend and deter the fight. Tune in to see Chris Pratt. And this is how you know it's propaganda, everybody. It's made up bullshit. Okay. As with any huge bureaucracy, and the DoD is one of the world's largest, breaking the status quo requires leadership and endurance. Technology is critical to maintaining our warfighting primacy. But we must be leery of the siren song that technology alone can protect us. This is so unserious. This is so like I can't. It's so hard to take this seriously, which is part of the ploy, right? You're not supposed to take it seriously. They don't want you to take it seriously because they don't want you to notice the real underlying problems of how dangerous this is. It's part of its veneer, right? It's like, more important is how new technologies are developed, tested, procured, and used, and that relies on the true competitive advantages of our people, ingenuity, common sense, and thoughtfulness grounded in a free society. You mean like how women using their common sense and their thoughtfulness decide that they don't want to have a baby that they've been impregnated with against their will, and use ingenuity to get that abortion that they're not free to have. Period. Because take a drink. Because freedoms in America are only allotted to people with enough money to afford it. Period. Because war will continue to be the most successful and consequential human endeavor. Much stressful. Because war will continue to be the most stressful and consequential human endeavor, the most powerful weapon system will remain the 6 inches between the ears of our citizens and the strength of their hearts and content of their souls. And this will be our Independence Day. Shut the fuck up. Military service is the most difficult task we ask of our citizens, and our nation is enormously blessed that so many young, patriotic Americans eagerly volunteer to carry such a heavy burden. Weren't you just complaining that not enough young people were joining during the Biden administration? Can you fucking pick a lane? 6 inches, teehee. We owe them everything and we must do better. Then give things to veterans, you fucks. To do better, however, means recognizing and implementing 4 overriding priorities. Priority number 1, reestablish a culture of command accountability, non-politicization, and war-fighting focus. That's 3 things. Priority 2, transform our armed forces for maximum effectiveness in an era of great power competition. I don't know what that means, but okay. Priority 3, provide necessary support to Department of Homeland Security, DHS, border protection operations. Border protection is a national security issue that requires sustained attention and effort by all elements of the executive branch. Then why didn't you fuckers vote it in when it was proposed by Kamala Harris? Priority number 4, demand financial transparency and accountability. I don't hate that. I'm down for that. That sounds good. This chapter offers recommendations for improving our armed forces and the civilian organizations that support and oversee them. DoD policy. Okay, here we go. Now that we actually get to the meat of the matter, it's going to be overcooked. By far the most significant danger to America's security, freedoms, and property and prosperity is China. Ooh, we need to invent a new big bad. It's got to be China. We've moved away from Pakistan and Afghanistan and Iraq, and now the big bad is China. Okay. China is, by any measure, the most powerful state in the world other than the United States itself. How did you measure that? I'm just curious. I mean, I can't citation needed that because, well, I can citation needed it, which I'm going to do. But also, I can't look that up. I don't know what they're measuring by. Like, I don't know how to quantify this. It apparently aspires to dominate Asia and then from that position become globally preeminent. There we go. If Beijing could achieve this goal, it could dramatically undermine America's core interests, including by restricting U.S. access to the world's most important market, preventing this from happening. Is China the world's most important market, and America is worried that they won't get access to China's market if China becomes strong enough to tell the U.S. no? Is that what that means? Why is China the most important market? Is because they still use slave labor, basically, and like slave wages and child labor? Is that why? Like, I don't disagree that China can be problematic and has like a lot of policies and things that I would disagree with and don't like, and I don't think that and I think Emperor Winnie the Pooh can go fuck himself, and I also think that Taiwan should be a free state. But I'm trying to understand this. We're not talking about what I think or believe. I'm trying to understand what they think and believe. And I am confused. Preventing this from happening must be the top priority for America foreign and defense policy. Okay, then tell Ping to suck an egg and protect Taiwan. No, is that not... Didn't Trump say he was buddies with them? Whatever. Beijing presents a challenge to American interests across the... Is this to try to convince Trump as opposed to actually try to convince, like, the American people? Is this propaganda for Trump? Because he's not going to read this. Beijing presents a challenge to American interests across the domains of national power, but the military threat that it poses is especially acute and significant. China is undertaking a historic military buildup that includes increasing capability for power projection, not only in its own region, but also far beyond, as well as dramatic expansion of its nuclear forces that could result in a nuclear force that matches or exceeds America's own nuclear arsenal. Ooh. The most severe immediate threat that Beijing's military poses, however, is to Taiwan and other U.S. allies along the first island chain in the Western Pacific. If China could subordinate Taiwan or allies like the Philippines, South Korea, and Japan, it could break apart any balancing coalition that is designed to prevent Beijing's hegemony over Asia. Yeah, but why would you just let them be free? Why do you need to take them over? Why do they need to be subordinate to you as opposed to subordinate to China? That's silly. I think they need China to be a boogeyman in order to keep their agenda rolling. I agree. Like, I think that China is problematic and what they're doing isn't bad, like, isn't good, and, like, the way they treat their people isn't good. But that, I think this is just fear-mongering. I don't think this is actually solving a problem. I think this is fear propaganda for an alternate agenda, and that alternate agenda is overreaching government power and turning America into a creating a demagogue. Accordingly, the United States must ensure that China does not succeed. That requires a denial defense, the ability to make the subordination of Taiwan and other U.S. allies in Asia prohibitively difficult. Critically, the United States must be able to do this at a level of cost and risk that Americans are willing to bear, given the relative importance of Taiwan to China and to the U.S. The United States and its allies also face real threats from Russia. Oh my God. Real threats from Russia, as evidenced by Vladimir Putin's brutal war in Ukraine, as well as from Iran, North Korea, and transnational terrorism at a time when decades of ill-advised military operations in the greater Middle East and atrophy of our defense industrial base, the impact of sequestration and effective disarmament by many U.S. allies have exacted a high toll on America's military. Okay, but to have a strong military and a strong people and a strong country, you need to fix your fucking economy. And to fix your fucking economy, you need to invest in the middle class, and you need to restrict the power and money taken by a handful of people and a handful of companies that are taking advantage of your people, and redistribute that. Trump hates Congressional Honor of Medal recipients and prisoners of war. Yes, I agree with that. I think he does. I think he hates anybody getting any kind of accolades that he can't lord over himself. This is because I think he's a petty small man. This is a grim landscape. The United States needs to deal with these threats forthrightly and with strength. You can only do that if you have people and a power to do. I'm getting put on a list. Oh, shit. Not another one. I've been on a few lists in my time. Hey. Oh, hey. Thank you all, by the way, for engaging in this with me. I know it's painful, and I know it's really hard, and I do really appreciate you guys coming in and engaging with me. It makes reading this survivable. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. This is a grim landscape. The United States needs to deal with these threats forthrightly and with strength, but it also needs to be realistic. It cannot wish away these problems. Rather, it must confront them with a clear-eyed recognition of the need for choice, discipline, and adequate resources for defense. In this light, the U.S. defense strategy must identify China unequivocally as a top priority for U.S. defense planning, while mobilizing and expanding the U.S. nuclear arsenal. You want more nuclear arsenal? Okay, sure, that'll help. And sustaining an efficient and effective counterterrorism enterprise. U.S. allies must also step up with incoming Chinese people being put into camps again. Let's not do that again. Can we not do that again? That was terrible. We shouldn't do that. That was a bad idea. It didn't work. It wasn't effective. It was problematic. Let's not do that. U.S. allies must also step up, with some joining the United States in taking on China in Asia, while others take more of a lead in dealing with threats from Russia in Europe, Iran in the Middle East, and North Korea. The reality is that achieving these goals will require more spending on defense. More spending on more? You want to spend more? Oh, sorry, modernizing, not mobilizing. Thank you very much. They want to spend more money on the military. Bro, you're spending more than 50%. What are you... Both by the United States and by its allies, as well as active support for the reindustrialization and more support for allies' productive capacity so that we can scale our free world efforts together. They want everybody else to spend more money on their military as well. Oh. I mean, I feel like just a big blow to China. Like, if that was your goal and you wanted to, like, hurt China in some way, I feel like the first thing you would want to do is embargo, or you would want to forcibly stop companies like Apple from using child labor. Like Apple, and I believe, is it Nike that also, like, a lot of clothing agent, like, right? Companies that are taking advantage of China's market that takes advantage of China's people, that maybe that would be a really big, like, if you said all the tech companies that operated in China that you weren't allowed to sell product that was made in under these conditions in China, like, would that not be a massive blow to China's economy, as well as, like, bring jobs back to America, like kind of a two birds, one stone kind of thing? It would really hurt those companies, that's for sure, but fuck them, I don't care. If you have to exploit people to be a company, maybe you just fail at capitalism. Capitalism shouldn't be exploitative. I mean, it is, but it shouldn't. Right. Yeah, whatever. You would think that America, land of the free, home of the American dream of the right to life, liberty, and happiness, pursuit of happiness, you would think that it wouldn't enable companies that exploit people. But hey, whatever. Needed reforms. Prioritize a denial defense against China. U.S. defense planning should focus on China and, in particular, the effective denial of defense of Taiwan. This focus and priority for U.S. defense activities will deny China the first island chain. 1. Require that all U.S. defense efforts, from force planning to employment and posture, focus on ensuring the ability of American forces to prevail in the pacing scenario and deny China a fait accompli against, a fiat accompli, accompli against Taiwan. I'm a goblin, I can't read. 2. Prioritize the U.S. conventional force planning construct to defeat a China invasion of Taiwan before allocating resources to other missions, such as simultaneously fighting another conflict. By the way, if you're not from America, you should also be paying attention to this, because if America goes to war with China, the rest of us are going to get dragged into some bullshit. I'm just saying, if you're not aware of that, be aware of that. As a Canadians should be concerned about this. This is something that affects us as well greatly, because every time America gets into shit, we always have to fucking get dragged into shit. So we should be aware of this and what's going on with it. Fun fact, you personally know Chris Miller. The Chris Miller that's writing this, that's part of this shit, this guy that's being referenced in here, damn. You need to tell me stories. Give me the tea. Increase allied conventional defense burden sharing. U.S. allies, again, I would love to see the company actually trying to have a conversation about this shit. Increase allied conventional defense burden sharing. U.S. allies must take far greater responsibility for their conventional defense. U.S. allies must pay their part, not only in dealing with China, but also in dealing with threats from Russia, Iran, and North Korea. We do? Again, a lot of the other countries have already been participating, particularly in Ukraine, that the Conservative Party has been fucking bitching and moaning about, and the MAGA people are like, we like Putin. What do you want? We don't want to send things to Ukraine. Where America was like, listen, we're going to give you these missiles, Ukraine, but you're not allowed to use them in Russian territory. You're not allowed to fire them outside of Russian territory, and Ukraine went, okay, thank you, and then just fired them from Russian territory. Like the conservative Americans, whatever. Oh, whatever. Sure. Unless you want Biden to be more aggressive about that, which, sure, I guess. 1. Make burden sharing a central part of U.S. defense strategy with the United States, not just helping allies to step up, but strongly encouraging them to do so. Support greater spending and collaboration by Taiwan and allies in the Asia Pacific, like Japan and Australia, to create a collective defense model. Transform NATO so that U.S. allies are capable of fielding the great majority of the conventional forces required to deter Russia, while relying on the United States primarily for our nuclear deterrent, and select other capabilities while reducing the U.S. force posture in Europe. So you want You basically want to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. That's what you're fucking describing. You want to fight you want to fight with China, you want to fight with Russia, but you want other people to pay for your fight. Hmm. I mean, if you want to do something like that, I still think the best way to do that is to be like, stop selling China stuff. Stop buying stuff from China. Just lock them out of global economics. If you lock them out of global economics, that would do so much to like just fuck them royally. It would be because like it's not like China hasn't been attempting to ingrain itself in other economies, right? So if you were to lock them out, whatever. Big gun go shoot bang bang burr. That bang boom. What is that? That's Trump, right? The bang bang boom pow, like bling bling. Sustain support for Israel even as America empowers Gulf partners to take responsibility for their own coastal air and missile defense, both individually and working collectively. Half the reason why these places don't have a stable defense system is because of America fucking around and finding out and then leaving them to fuck off. Also sustaining support in Israel. Ding ding bong. 5, enable South Korea to take the lead on its conventional defense against North Korea. Implement nuclear modernization and expansion. The United States manifestly needs to modernize, adapt, and expand its nuclear arsenal. Russia maintains and is actively brandishing a very large nuclear arsenal, but China is also undertaking a historic nuclear breakout. I would like to point out that one of the best things you can actually do if you are running a lot of technology is to do that, but make sure that you still have a paper trail and an analog way where things are also tracked, and just do double, because having the analog track is incredibly important if anything ever goes down, as we saw with things like CrowdStrike. So I absolutely recommend, if you are somebody who does or works on this type of stuff, or you have any kind of process in place, make sure that you have an analog way of doing and tracking whatever you need to do and track. Like, it's incredibly important. Like, for example, like I have all my passwords for logging into everything written down on a physical piece of paper. Like, it's whatever. 1, expand and modernize the U.S. Nuclear force so that it has the size, sophistication, and tailoring to deter Russia and China simultaneously. But it doesn't do that. If it did that, then Russia and China wouldn't be... You're talking about going back to a Cold War. Or Cold War again. We're still in it. I mean, as Landon was saying, we are in a Cold War. We are currently in a Cold War. We've been in a Cold War. Otherwise, America's been in proxy wars. So again, as much as we can say, hey, we're out of, like, America's out of Afghanistan, so they're at peace. Like, no, they got out of Afghanistan and are in a Cold War with Russia again. So, like, if you count the Cold War, we're still back to America's still at war, technically. 2, develop a nuclear arsenal with the size, sophistication, and tailoring, including new capabilities at the theater level, to ensure that there is no circumstance in which America is exposed to serious nuclear coercion. Increase allied counter-terrorist burden sharing. Transitional terrorism remain a threat to America even as we pivot towards Asia. Sustain the military force needed to deter, prevent, and combat terrorism. I mean, they said all this already. They're just repeating themselves. Can you explain why and maybe go in depth to your justification and give me some statistics and numbers and verify some of the shit you're talking about instead of just, like, repeating yourself over and over again? Combat terrorism, but at a sustainable cost in concert with other elements of national power and partner efforts. 2, prioritize enhancing the capability of allies and partners to take the lead in combating terrorism in their regions. DoD acquisition and sustainment, A and S. Boy, great. The DoD's ability to acquire... Basically, like, we want to have a bazooka pointed at you so you don't point a bazooka at us. This is something that Mania talked about on the tavern, so if you're interested, go check out our tavern. The DoD's ability to acquire and field new and existing technologies is essential to the ability of America's military personnel to fight and win our nation's wars. To succeed in this endeavor, we must optimize the system and personnel that the department uses, but the inflexible bureaucratic structure and risk-averse culture that have developed over the decades make it difficult to provide the tools that warfighters need to at the speed of relevance. But you haven't stopped being at war. What the fuck are you talking about? The number one problem is the DoD budgeting process, initiated in 1961, that requires acquisition spending to be locked years in advance, period, because, take a drink, technologies can change so rapidly and requirements can change overnight. This creates no, it can't. This creates situations in which the military personnel not only go to war with outdated technology, but also may be fighting with equipment that is less capable than that of their competitors. America owes its military many things, and the most important is resources they need to survive on the battlefield and carry out the tasks we ask of them. Okay, but hear me out. The answer to that isn't more military spending. The answer to that is more education in your country and a better economic status for the people in your country, so that they, and more resources put into research and development so that they can work on these things, and the people that live in your country can build and develop and innovate, which is one of the things America was known for during the prior Cold War in the space race. So if you were to do that and go back to that, then you have to adjust the taxes that are collected from billionaires to get that money that you need to do that and educate those people and put it into social programs. That's the way you do that. Fuck you. You're stupid. You're
stupid. I think that it's stupid. I disagree infinitely about the way that was dumb, and I hate it. And I hate it. By the way, I hate it. I think it's dumb, and I
think it's dumb, and I hate it. Bleh. 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 Needed reforms. Reform the planning, programming, budgeting, and execution PPBE process. 1. Enhancing funding and authority for DoD mission. I'm sorry, Markiplier. I shouldn't be using a clip of you who does not really talk about this kind of stuff in my discussions about these kinds of things. I'm sorry. You're a great creator, and I really shouldn't use your face and voice for my bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm gonna do it again, but you know, you've never spoken on this kind of stuff, and I good. Keep doing what you're doing. You're great. 1. Enhance funding and authority for DoD mission-focused innovation organizations and away from program-specific stovepipes that planned for and designed 2 to 3 years earlier may no longer be relevant. This allows the acquisition community to focus on portfolio management and move money around more easily instead of being locked into inflexibility multi-year procurement cycles. Planning war in advance, wacky. 2. The president should examine the recommendations of the congressionally mandated Commission on Planning, Programming, Budgeting, and Execution Reform and develop a strategy for implementing those that the administration considers to be the best interests of the American people. The Commission's final report is due on September 1st, 2023. What? What year is it? Maybe that's just a typo. It's also September 3rd of 2024 right now. This wasn't published. Wasn't this? When is this from? Was this from before that I think it was? I'm so Develop legislation or other means of providing funding outside of the traditional PPBE process for those prototyping and experimentation of emerging technologies that are deemed essential to modernization and future conflict. Oh my God. If you want to be a leader in technology again, America, like you were once upon a time, you need to educate your people. You need to have funding in education and in those places of research in those fields. You know, all those experts that you said at the beginning of this you didn't want, and you were like, oh, we don't need experts for this shit. That thing, it's that. What is wrong with you? We're back to this thing can't not contradict itself. That's where we're at. This is what's happening. 3. Developing legislation or means of providing funding outside of the... Oh, I just read that. Blah, 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 blah. Consider creating a, quote, fast track for projects that satisfy the most pressing national security needs. 4. Require the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment and the Undersecretary for Research and Engineering and all service secretaries to conduct, quote, night court and use existing authorities to terminate outdated or underperforming programs so that money can be used for what works and will work. Oh, you mean like taking money away from Elon Musk and his space shit? Require the undersecretaries and service secretaries to brief the secretary annually on the results. 5. Require... Sorry, that was just a funny sentence. 5. Require the Office of the Secretary of Defense to research and report on the acquisition process used by American adversaries to improve our understanding of how they are often able to innovate, field new technologies on a faster timeline. We know how and why. You don't even... So how could everyone strengthen America's defense industrial base? 1. Replenish and maintain U.S. stockpiles of ammunition and other equipment that have been depleted as a result of U.S. support to Ukraine. This will strengthen the defense industry supply chain and ensure that adequate inventory exists if it's needed for future conflict. One of the ways that America became rich was supplying weaponry outside of their country for wars they were not necessarily directly involved in. Right? Like, by that I mean, like, having feet on the ground. So, yes, if America wants to be a warmonger and make money off of war, this would be how they would do it. This is what we would want to do. 2. Collaborate with industry to develop, but you can't sniff your own, like, you can't take your own supply. You don't consume your own supply, dude. That's how you do it. Collaborate with industry to develop a prioritized list of reforms that the DoD and Congress can enact and implement to incentivize industry to help America's military innovate field needed capabilities. 3. Strengthen the ability of acquisition. But how? You're just stating that these things should happen without proposing, like, how to go about doing that. We didn't lose a damn thing by supplying Ukraine. Correct. Strengthen the ability of acquisition authorities to engage in multi-layer procurement and block buys. This will improve private sector rates of return, thereby incentivizing defense contractors to partner with the government. It will also reduce government overhead by reducing the number of procurement competitions. 4. Prioritize. It sounds like you want to socialize the military. Prioritize the U.S. Less capitalism, more socialism. Prioritize the U.S. and allies under the, quote, domestic end product and, quote, domestic components requirements of the Build America, Buy America Act. Currently, the defense companies are required to manufacture defensive items for the United States government that are 100% domestically produced and at least 50% composed of domestically produced components. However, there are loopholes that allow companies to manufacture these items overseas. This can create a supply chain and other issues, especially in wartime. Manufacturing components and end products domestically with allied spurred factory development increase American jobs and build resilience in America's defense industrial base. I guess, sure. Closing loopholes that are being taken advantage of by opportunistic companies, I can agree with. I can get on board with that. How you go about doing this, I might not agree with, but the concept, sure. 5. Review the sector currently prioritizing for offshore or friendshoring of manufacturing, kinetic capabilities, casting and forging, critical materials, microelectronics, space and electric vehicle batteries, and bracket. Evaluate them according to a strategic landscape and expand or reprioritize the list as appropriate. 6. Help small businesses to become medium-sized and large vendors, which encourage a more resilient industrial base and foster competition. Encourage and plan for for durable supply chains for small business so they also have commercial/private sector customers and not solely dependent on defense orders, which can be highly specialized, expensive, and irregular. 7. Increase in external engagement among small business to inform them of DoD needs and how they could work with DoD to meet national security priorities. Optimize the DoD acquisition community. 1. Create incentives to emphasize speed and agility in decision making for prototyping and program of record starts and terminations. Most bureaucrats would rather follow a checklist and fail than go outside the procedures and win because failure means negative career repercussions. No, it means that if you don't have checks and balances in place for, like, safety measures of how whatever you're doing functions, and those checks and balances means people die and you fail overall because it's an overall detriment. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck? Senior acquisition leaders should design a system that allows decision makers to stay within the law but bypass unnecessary departmental regulations that are not in the best interest of the government and hamper the acquisition of capabilities that war fighters require. 2. The Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, Undersecretary for Research and Engineering, and all service secretaries should assess their acquisition workforces, determine what additional personnel resources and training they need, and develop implementation plans. The goal is to develop, prototype, acquire, and field required capabilities at the speed of relevance to meet America's pacing threat and maintain a wartime advantage. 5. Decentralized Defense Acquisition University (DAU) offerings and expand the DAU mission to include accreditation of non-DoD institutions. The critical shortage of trained and certified acquisition personnel must be addressed with urgency in order to support DoD mission objective and goals. With the rapid evolution of training and educational technologies, including remote and virtual practices, there is no reason for the DAU to maintain a monopoly on the knowledge and certification that are required to perform as acquisition professionals. What did I tell you? They want to socialize all of this, which allows private businesses to take advantage of it and actually opens the door for foreign interference. Further, the cost to private contractors and non-DoD civilians who aspire to such role limits the supply of trained and certified candidates. DAU has become an unnecessary barrier to entry in a career field that is vital to the DoD mission. DoD Research, Development, Tests, and Evaluation, RDT&E. The FY, which they didn't say what that stands for. The FY 2017 National Defense Authorization Act established the position of Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering and assigned broad responsibility for, quote, all defense research and engineering technology, development, technology transition, prototyping, experimentation, and developmental testing activities and programs, including the allocation of resources for defense research and engineering and unifying defense research and engineering efforts across the department, end quote. To the new undersecretary, who also was tasked with, quote, serving as the principal advisor to the secretary on all research, engineering, and technology development activities and programs in the department, end quote. This led to the single largest DoD structural change since the Goldwater-Nichols Act of 1986 and was organized effectively during ex-President Donald Trump's administration. Needed reforms. And so what? What do you... FY is so short for fiscal year. Oh, thank you. I was more pointing out that they didn't establish what they meant by it, but I appreciate that you told me, because I also still didn't know. Champion, engage, and focus in the American... This just cuts off. Like, this doesn't say anything. Champion, engage, and focus the American innovation ecosystem. To maintain leadership in an area of great power competition and succeed against our adversaries, a key DoD effort must be the creation of mechanisms and process to embrace America's most significant competitive advantage, innovation. 1. Engage and leverage all of America's scientific engineering and high-tech production communities to research, develop, prototype, and rapidly deploy advanced technology capabilities on a continuing basis to preserve our wartime advantage. Then you need to have Americans with that level of education, which means you need to enable Americans to have that education and make education affordable and living affordable so that way they can go and educate themselves. What are you talking about? I hate you. You're stupid. 2. Increase increase integration and collaboration among the DoD, government labs, and private companies to solve the department's most difficult problems. Private companies. 3. Reduce the number of critical technology areas from 14 to a more manageable number to concentrate effort and resources on those that bear directly on great power competition. But you didn't say which 14 there are, and then which ones need to be cut and why. Oh my god. Rebuild RDT&E infrastructure that resides in Cold War era facilities and is not well suited to the current era of rapid development and testing of advanced technology and concepts to the maturity level necessary for acquisition and operational fielding. I love this concept that the infrastructure that was built and in the Cold War time, which was about innovation and operational fielding as quickly as possible, was apparently not well suited for the exact thing that it was developed for. It might be out of date, but it is certainly built with that intention, which is bizarre to me. 5. Move towards a much more comprehensive, independent risk reduction approach. Weren't you just complaining about everything being whatever? To increase understanding of the technical risk by drawing on the expertise in DoD laboratories. Now you want experts. Now you're complaining there's not enough experts after saying you didn't need experts. And agencies to help acquisition programs succeed. Improve the rapid deployment of technology to the battlefield. America's military advantage has derived from the professionalism of our service members and our ability to manifest our technological advantage in battlefield capability. Need I remind you about how many Canadians were killed due to America's personnel incompetency of not being able to recognize their allies on the battlefield? Need I remind you? This is not what America is known for. You're lying to yourselves. If you want to know what America is known for, you need to ask people that aren't from America. The current era of great power competition will continue for the foreseeable future, and technology will be the currency of competition. Our ability to prevail will rest on our ability to develop new technologies and move them onto the battlefield more rapidly than our adversaries can. And you have to make sure that that technology and deployment of said technology is trusted by your allies, which right now I do not think that America has allies that trust them to do this. 1. Accelerate the prototyping cycle to meet immediate battlefield needs. 2. Require tighter integration with user communities to provide value. 3. Establish a pipeline of near-term, mid-term, and long-term technology that is aimed at great power competition, China, and can be matured, prototype, and evaluated to support major acquisitions, the ability to produce at scale, to break the cycle of schedule delays and cost overruns from underdeveloped and poorly understood technologies. Okay. Develop a framework to protect the RDT&E enterprise from foreign exploitation. Strategic competition and adaptive adversaries require new thinking about how to protect technology. China has been relentless in stealing U.S. technology, using the full range of stealing U.S. technology. China. U.S. Tech. Page 132. Listen, I don't doubt that that would be a thing, but I want a citation. Because I want to know what you're talking about. Boop. Onto the board. Poorly understood technologies. What the fuck is that supposed to mean? I don't know. I don't know what that's supposed to be referencing. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Are they complaining that DAU cost those taking the class too much? They're free. Probably. They're claiming they have a monopoly on the things that they teach. No, well, they're saying that they have a monopoly on the accreditation of the things that they teach. So they monopolize the accreditation, not necessarily the information. Does that make sense? I think that's what they're trying to say. Using the full range of measures from influence operations to outright theft. This has been a major factor in its ability to close the gap and in some cases exceed U.S. capabilities. One suggestion, I guess, implement a comprehensive approach to preserving U.S. technology's leadership that is based on outpacing our adversaries, clear about what we need to protect, tailored to various specific sectors, for example, academia and the defense industrial base and laboratories, and underpinned with a full range of consequences for attempted or actual theft. Okay. This is an article titled Chinese Hackers Stole Sensitive U.S. Navy Submarines Plans from Contractor. DOD foreign... Like, I don't doubt that that's happening. I just want to, like, be clear about how much of a problem it actually is, etc., etc. DOD foreign military sales. The United States must regain its role as the, quote, arsenal of democracy in fiscal year FY. See, this time they said fiscal year and put it in brackets. That's what I was complaining about. This is what I was saying. 2021, U.S. government foreign military sales, FMS, nosedived to a low of $34.8 billion from a record high of $55.7 billion in fiscal year 2018. This decrease hinders interoperability. I don't know what that is. What is that? Interoperability. Hold on. Interoperability. Interpretability? Am I just reading it wrong? The capability of a product or system to interact and function with others. Military, the capacity for a service, piece of equipment, etc., to be operated by different forces or the groups. Got it. I understand. Interoperability. Thank you. Yeah, we're on part 5. Thank you. Interoperability. You mean having service members who are able to drive the truck, read the map, and fire the gun that's on the truck? As opposed to that, like, that was a running joke in Canada. I don't know if you knew that. It was a running joke that, so Canadian service members are well known for their thorough education and training, so that way they can jump jobs and operate different things in a time where they need to do so. So there's no real hiccups. They build in redundancies so that multiple people can do the same job and do multiple jobs, so there's always somebody that's able to, like, hop from one to the other. And it was a joke going around during, like, Iraq that the American military couldn't do that. They had to have 3 service members to do one job because as soon as one of them was out, they couldn't do anything afterward because the other guy isn't authorized and doesn't know how to drive the fucking truck. Like, it was a joke. Like, what the fuck? This decrease hinders the interoperability with partners and allies, decreases defense industrial base capacity, and increases the taxpayer burden on the U.S. military's own procurements. So the point wasn't have one guy do 3 jobs. The point was to still have 3 people to do the job, but make sure all 3 of them know how to do all 3 jobs. Yes, Tom, thank you. Under previous administrations, the United States built its reputation as, if you are somebody who is just listening to this, either now or in the future, I definitely recommend taking a moment to check out chat at some point, because they're offering a whole lot of not just interpretation, but like information and perspective that I think is valuable. I just can't get into it too much now because I want to actually get through this chapter in a reasonable amount of time. Also, I'm hungry. Under previous administration, the United States built its reputation as a reliable partner with a strong defense industrial base that could supply military articles and goods in a timely manner. Ha 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 ha! Today's FMS process is encumbered by Byzantine bureaucracy, long contracting times, high costs, and mundane technology. The United States can change this downward trajectory by improving internal processes that incentivize partners and allies to procure U.S. defense systems, thereby expanding our quote, defense ecosystem. We must reverse the recent dip in FMS to ensure both that our partners remain interoperable with the United States and that our defense industrial base regains much needed capacity in preparation for future challenges. Needed reforms. Emphasize exportability with U.S. procurements. The record low FMS sales in 2021 were driven partly by... leave it to a bunch of fucking CEO fucking business bullshitters to think that this is the way to fix the military. And the view of the military by outside force, by like allies. The record low FMS sales in 2021 were driven partly by the high cost of converting weapon systems on the back end of production rather than emphasizing exportability in initial capability planning. Ensure that senior U.S. military leadership emphasizes exportability. Stop treating the military like a business. Stop treating the American government like a business. That's not what it is. That's not what it's for. Fucking cut your shit. Stop it. Jackasses. Fuck you. I hate you. You're stupid. Exportability and initial development of defense systems that are both available and interoperable with our partners and allies. 2, create a funding mechanism to incentivize exportability in initial planning, which can be recouped after future FMS transactions. And informal congressional notification. Informal congressional notification, or tiered review, is a hindrance to ensuring timely sales to our global partners. Yeah, why would you want checks and balances? Why would you want to review things by an external party to make sure everything's on the up and up? Well, who needs that? Get out of here. Who needs a Q&A department? QA department is quality assurance, by the way. The tiered review, let's just get rid of Q&A. Let's get rid of QA departments. They were not needed. Who needs scheduled maintenance on machines or any type of maintenance? The tiered review. This is like Bad Boss, the government version. God damn it. The U.S. government is going to put Chesh out of business. If the quality is so low, let's just stop tracking it. Problem solved. Isn't that what Trump was saying during, like, COVID? He was just like, yeah, but if we just stop counting, the numbers go down. It's like, what? No. Huh? What? Excuse me? The fuck are you talking about? The tiered review process is not codified in law. It is merely a practice by which the Department of State provides a preview of prospective arm transfers before Congress is formally notified. Hey, Hint for your Democrats and your people out there who don't want this shit in place, you should probably codify that. One, end the tier reviewed process to eliminate at least 20 days from the FMS process. Two, use the tiered review process only when unanimous congressional support is guaranteed in order to eliminate the weaponization by select members of Congress that have prevented billions of dollars of armed sales from moving into formal congressional notification. So, fill Congress and every piece of government with people that are just going to be yes men for our dictator, which in this case is Trump. So that way everybody will just say yes regardless. But we also will prevent anybody besides our guy from doing anything by putting something like this in place. Yuck. Yikes. FMS sagged because we've already sold everything they wanted and we're giving some combat vehicles to Ukraine. Yeah, go figure. I don't think the military is supposed to be a for-profit endeavor, but okay. Minimize barriers to collaboration. The high cost of developing advanced defense platforms requires the United States to collaborate with key allies to minimize waste, complement strengths, and supplement our defense industrial base to create a system that is greater than that of the United States alone. Hey, I was going to say they haven't mentioned Canada at all throughout this, and this is the first time. But now that's like, decrease it. That's hilarious. One, enhance defense industrial base planning with parties to allow them to focus on niche areas where there are cost advantages for the United States. Two, decrease international traffic and arms regulations, ITAR, to facilitate trade with such allies as the United Kingdoms, Canada, and Australia. Yeah, less regulations. Yeah, okay. Sure. Create opportunities to improve the health and the defense supply chain with added opportunities for partners to and allies contribute. Can I point out, by the way, they're raging against China, but everything they're proposing in here and what the Republican Party in different states has put forward is turning America into more like China. So installing a dictator, installing these additional rules, removing certain protections for people, as well as, in particular, decreasing the age of that a child can go and work. Just thought I'd point out that little observation. Reform the FMS contracting process. The contracting timeline for the FMS process is shockingly low. On average, the DoD contracting timeline takes approximately 8 months because of the slow bureaucratic process and chronic understaffing. Oh, so you want to hire more people who aren't experts, right? One, immediately fund more contracting capacity in all services to decrease the contracting timeline and improve the military defense articles to our global partners. Did they not say in earlier chapters that there were too many contractors in the government and they wanted to decrease the number of contractors? Two, rationalize and speed arms sales decision-making to preclude our enemies from exploiting bureaucratic slothfulness and allow us to manage and develop an indigenous defense industrial base. Hey, guys, if you speed up the arms sales and do less checks and balances, it means that it's more likely that they'll be able to take advantage of the lack of regulations and the lack of oversight. DoD personnel. Jack says, classic narcissism being the very thing it pretends to resist. Yeah. DoD personnel. The men and women of America's armed forces are the most critical component of our national defense strategy, but in recent years they have been overextended, undervalued, and insufficiently resourced. Their families help them to carry the burden of service, but the assistance they receive is disproportionately less than the sacrifice they make. Young civilians who would thrive in a military environment are disenfranchised when educators and influencers discourage them from learning about military service and preparing for the honor of wearing America's uniform. Yeah, that's not what's happening. It's that the military treats its personnel like shit. And younger people are learning about that through things like social media and, you know, people being allowed to talk about it and that access to information. And you treat veterans like shit. And we know you treat veterans like shit. And you treat service members that are not military service members, like firefighters, like shit. It just look at what Congress did and how the Senate treated the emergency service workers after and throughout 9/11. They all talked all hoity-toity about how great everybody was for making these sacrifices and giving their lives and their bodies for this shit, and then didn't do dick shit for them when they needed medical support. If you want to know about that, you can just ask Jon Stewart. That dude was fucking fighting for that shit forever. The dude retired and went into basically doing that full time. So, like, people are disenfranchised because their government treats them like shit. Like, what are you fucking talking about? Stop treating them like shit. The United States military is an extraordinary institution staffed by exceptional people who have defended our nation and changed the course of history. I would love to hear a military veteran speak about how they feel about this and if they think that's true. Remember Iraq and the money funnels that happened due to the lack of oversight? Yeah, speed that up. Yeah, exactly. Alex said they say they want to help veterans, but actively discourage any effort that would actually help veterans. Exactly. And they like to propagandize and use Hollywood to propagandize about the American military, and because younger people are too smart for that and are fucking thinking about it and maybe think that it's a bad idea to poach teenagers by lying to them is not a good thing for the military to be doing. You want to talk about the amount of spending the military has on media and trying to and recruitment and the amount that they lie to people? Like, is that the conversation you want to fucking have? Because that's the conversation you're bringing up, and I don't think that's a conversation you actually want to have. But the Biden administration, through word and deed, has treated the armed forces as just another place to work. Example, citation. We citation needed this. Yeah, okay. We must restore our military to a place of honor and respect. So we're backing Donald Trump. And recruit and retain the individuals who will meet the rigorous standards of excellence that are required for membership in the world's greatest fighting force by reducing the number of by reducing the number and reduce like the number of people and the number of certificates and the exclusivity of that thing. Like, the things that they were proposing prior do the opposite of what they're suggesting. Needed reforms. Rescue recruiting and retention. Recruiting was the worst in 2022 that it has been in 2 generations and is expected to be worse in 2023. So this was from the past. That's why September 2023, when they referenced that number, made more sense. Hi, Michael. Some of the problems are self-inflicted and ongoing. The recruiting problem is not service-specific. It affects the entire joint force. 1. Support special assistance to the president, who will maintain liaison with Congress, DOD, and other interested parties on the issue of recruiting and retention. 2. How would the equity of treating people fairly in the military make people not want... How is that not supporting military... Improve recruiting by suspending the use of recently introduced MHS Genesis system that uses private medical records for potential recruitment at military entrance processing stations, MEPS, creating unnecessary delays and unwanted rejections. Unwarranted rejections. Yeah, why would we want to make sure that people we're bringing in are healthy and well taken care of? Improve military recruiters' access to secondary schools. Fuck you! What did I just fucking say? Suck my snowballs. Jackasses. Improve military recruiting access to secondary school and require completion of Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery, ASVAB, the military entrance examination, by all students in schools that receive federal funding. If you want to go to school, you have to join the military. There is a discussion to be had, I guess, in America about required military service, but not in the way that these people are proposing it. I think it would be a good idea that gym class throughout high school is ostensibly military physical training, with some adjustments made for obvious reasons, right? Basically conditioning. But, whatever. 4, encourage members of Congress to provide time to military recruiters during each town hall session in their congressional district. 5, increase the number of junior ROTC programs in secondary schools. Hi, Rez. Restore standards of lethality and excellence. Entrance criteria for military service and specific occupational career fields should be based on the needs of those positions. Exceptions for individuals who are already predisposed to require medical treatment, for example, HIV positive or suffering from gender dysphoria, should be removed, and those with gender dysphoria should be expelled from military service. Physical fitness requirements should be based on the occupational field without consideration of gender, race, ethnicity, or orientation. Yeah, but you need to be flexible. You already discussed that you want more people and you need them to be able to do more varied things and have varied capabilities. And now you're saying that actually that's the opposite. We want to exclude more people, and we want... and that you mentioned that people shouldn't be rejected for superfluous medical reasons. And now you're adding in superfluous medical reasons. Why they should be removed. And then you're also turning around and saying they should actually have less training in fields and in overlapping redundancies. And that there shouldn't be any variance to what the capabilities are and what is necessary. Listen, not every firefighter needs to be able to lift X, Y, and Z weight, because sometimes you need a smaller person to be able to get into places, and maybe that smaller person doesn't have the capability of lifting that thing. Which is why you build in redundancies. That's why you have more than one person that's able to do a thing. So that way you get the best of both worlds. You want the best of the most area covered. Chesh, we can't have icky gay people in the military, don't be serious. Hey, remember when I was talking about the transphobia of the company, and particularly Steve McRae, who had turned around and said there wasn't any problem with gay people in the Navy while I was serving? Suggesting that this shit isn't problematic for gay people and that gay people should just shut the fuck up about it. Yeah, fuck you. Physical fitness, eliminate politicization, reestablish trust and accountability, and restore faith to the force. In 2021, the Reagan National Defense Survey. Drink for Reagan. In 2021, the Reagan National Defense Survey found that only 45% of Americans have a, quote, a great deal of trust and confidence in the military, down from 70% in 2018. Yeah, gee, I wonder what could have happened between point A and point B. 1. Strengthen protections for chaplains to carry out their ministry according to the tenets of their faith. What the fuck? Are you fucking serious? Guys, we need prayer back in school to stop shootings. Guys, we need people to trust our military, so put more God in the military. Like, if you want to do that, you have to do all the religions, right? God damn it, dude. Unbelievable. 2. Codify language to instruct senior military officers 3 and 4 stars to make certain that they understand their primary duty to be ensuring the readiness of the armed forces, not pursuing a social engineering agenda. What the fuck? This direction should be reinforced during the Senate confirmation process. Orders and direction motivated by purely partisan motives should be identified as threats to readiness. What is purely partisan about people are people and should be treated like they're people? The military personnel aren't fucking robots, assholes. They're not fucking crusaders. Stop it. Stop trying to force military personnel to fucking... You suck. You suck and I hate you. 3. Reinstate service members to active duty who were discharged for not receiving the COVID vaccine. Yeah, let's just accidentally like kill a massive percentage of our fucking military personnel and put them all at risk because COVID. Yeah, great. Yeah, let's make America military strong by bringing COVID to the military, because anybody who survives it will be immune to COVID and in any of its variants afterwards, because that's how vaccines work. That's how viruses work. Yeah, great. That's a great idea. Genius. I see no flaw here. That's definitely not unnecessarily putting your fucking military at massive medical risk. You fuck nugget. You absolute fucking jackass. Tell me you fucking hate the military service members without telling me you don't care and you hate the fucking military service members. Suck a whole ass egg, you fucking douchebags. You fucking corporate cucks. You fucking corporate, white-collared, fucking bureaucratic, fucking corporate bullshitters. Fuck you. Oh my god. Restore their appropriate rank and provide back pay. Yeah, sure. Eliminate Marxist indoctrination. They don't care about... Okay, so hear me out. Okay. Alex makes a good point, but hear me out. Did they not, in this chapter, just imply that COVID escaped from a military, like a science lab in China, implying that it was a ploy by China to weaken everybody else, that it was like that it was a weapon, that it was bioterrorism? Did they not just imply that? Didn't they say that earlier in this chapter, and that they're referencing something later in this chapter? So they're gonna say that COVID is a military weapon, but they're gonna not do anything to protect their military personnel from that bioweapon? Excuse me? What? Don't contradict yourself. Level 100 impossibility. This document is not capable of not just contradicting itself over and over and over again. What? Oesophagus, yeah. Look up the amazing article, Wiccans Get Worship Area at Air Force Academy. Okay. You know what? I'll do that right now, because I need a distraction off of how stupid what I just read was for a second. I need like a hot second, alright? And I appreciate that. It's NBC News sound good? Wiccans Get Worship Area at Air Force Academy. The Air Force Academy in Colorado has set up an outdoor worship area for followers of Wicca, Druidism, and other Earth-centered religions. Air Force Academy set an outdoor worship area for pagans, Wiccans, Druids. Yeah, okay, thanks. School officials said on Monday. This is 2010. A double circle of stones atop a hill in on the campus near Colorado Springs has been designated for the group, which previously met indoors. Quote, being with nature and connecting with it is kind of the whole point, said Tech Sergeant Brandon Longsier. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that. Longcrier. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. who sponsors the group and describes himself as pagan. Quote, it will dramatically improve that atmosphere and mindset and the actual connection. The stones were moved to the hilltop last year because erosion threatened to make them unstable in their previous location near the visitor center. Crews arranged them in two concentric circles because they thought it would be a pleasant place for cadets to relax. Good for them. What does that say? A freedom thing. It's about our commitment as airmen to protect freedom and defend freedom. To me, this is a freedom thing. What? You mean freedom of religion is a whole part of the military, of its existence, and like what America's supposed to be about? No. Anyway, eliminate Marxist indoctrination and divisive critical race theory programs and abolish new... and abolish newly established diversity, equity, and inclusion offices and staff. Yeah, let's just get rid of any kind of equality or equity in the American military. That's gonna make people want to join the military more, because if they're different, they're gonna get treated like shit or thrown out. I hate this. This is a horrible and awful and shitty and stupid and counterproductive and self-contradictory. At least to be consistent. Fuck you. Just fuck you. Jack for 20 said, thank you, I really appreciate that. Thank you for sticking with me through this awful bunch of garbage. This is what happens when people like Trump are puppets for such corrupt self-interest. This is the swamp Trump claimed to be draining out of the White House. Trump being the freak fall guy to hide behind. Yes, I agree 100% with what you're saying. The reason why I think it's so important to go over this isn't because I think Trump is a problem. It's because I think Trump is the obvious. And it's only a matter of time before they put somebody forward who is less obvious about what they're trying to push here. And this is important information. I think this is very valuable. I think people need to know this. Can I remind everybody that this wasn't supposed to be a public document? This wasn't supposed to be public. The only reason we got this is because furries kick ass. Furry hackers were like, fuck these people, because furries are they're targeting furries. They're targeting all those people. And so furry hackers, because furries actually control the world, you cannot convince me otherwise, fucking broke into this and distributed it to everybody. We only know about these plans ahead of time because the sacrifice and work of the one true overlord, who I am 100%... I, for one, accept our new overlords. Thank you, and I appreciate you. All right? I don't have any ears, but I do have gloves. Do that. I, for one, accept our new overlords. Thank you very much. I am here for this. However, we weren't supposed to know about this. The world wasn't supposed to know about this. This was all supposed to be stuff that's why Trump denied it. His name is all over this, and he's like, I have nothing to do with this, even though his name is all over it. And it's the same with the videos that leaked, the recruitment videos. All of this is leaked information that we weren't supposed to know. So now we know what their plans were and how they were trying to present those plans to people. It's really, really, really fucking important that people actually know what this document says. Because, this is the stuff that the Democratic Party or a third party, because it's not about party lines. This is a bipartisan issue. Republicans shouldn't want this, because it's bad for them. It's bad for you, the good people out there. And we have the furry community to thank for this. Thank you. As much as I am in pain going through all of this and how awful it all is, it's important. It matters. It's only a matter of time before they get somebody who's more sneaky than Trump is, because Trump is not sneaky. He's not subtle at all. He's an idiot. This thing is bad for Earth. Yes, this is bad for everybody. I'm Canadian going through this, and this is terrible. 5. Restrict the use of social media solely for purposes of recruitment and discipline any armed service personnel who use an official command channel to engage with civilian critics on social media. So remove rights, the basic rights that they're protecting, from the people that are protecting those rights. And not let them engage in conversations that might be critical. And restrict access to information to civilians and journalists. Yikes. That's terrifying. I can't even get into how terrifying that is, because I would spend a whole 30 minutes being like, that's horrifying and terrifying and what the fuck. Audit the course offerings at military academies to remove Marxist indoctrination, whatever that is, buzzword. Eliminate tenure for academic professionals. What? Eliminate tenure for academic professionals? Wow. Wow. I thought you said you wanted fucking professionals to do research for you, and now you want to take them out. Okay. And apply the same rules to instruction that are applied to other DoD contracting personnel. 7. Reverse policies that allow transgender individuals to serve in the military. No trans people in the military, guys. If you're trans, keep it hidden. If they find out you have gender dysphoria, they kick you out. All right. Well, I wonder what percentage of the military that is. Gender dysphoria is incompatible with the demands of military service. How so? In what way? In what way? And use the public monies for transgender surgeries or to facilitate abortion for service members should all be ended. Great. So fuck transgender people. Fuck women. And fuck gay people. Great. Oh, hey, Manu. Value the military family by treating everybody like shit. Okay. Yeah, I can't believe you said value military family after saying something like this. Fucking wow. Self-awareness, am I right? Fucking wow. Unbelievable. Value the military family. Military service requires extreme sacrifices by families. 1. Support legislation to increase wages and family allowances for active duty enlisted personnel. Yeah, sure, I'm fine with that. No ununiformed personnel should ever have to rely on social benefits like food stamps or public housing assistance. Okay. You know what? I agree. Social programs. I'm here for that. Improve base housing and consider military families holistically when considering change of station moves. I approve of that too. That sounds great. 3. Improve spouse employment opportunities and protections, including licensing reform and expand childcare. I think that's probably fine, although I don't really know about the licensing reform thing. I'm fine with that. 4. Audit all curricula and health policies in DoD schools for military families. Remove all inappropriate materials and reverse inappropriate policies. So not only are you, if you're serving in the military, are you not allowed to either get an abortion or have gender dysphoria or be trans or be gay, none of your family members are allowed to have access to any of that stuff too, which includes social media. They're saying that military families aren't allowed to have social media as well. And they're not allowed interacting in real life anymore. Yuck. 5. Support legislation. You're not allowed to be a different religion either, by the way. They mentioned that about the chaplains. Support legislation giving education savings account options to military families. I'm okay with that too. You want to give them more money and more education? I am here for that. You want to give them more social access and activities? I am here for that. This unnecessary restrictive bullshit needs to go fuck itself. I think that's something we can compromise on. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna give you like 3 out of 5 of the things that you propose and not take 2. Right? I think that's a compromise, right? We'll take some of this and not all of it. That's what compromise is about. Reduce the number of generals. Rank creep is pervasive. Rank creep. Stank creep, am I right? Whoa. The number of 0 to 6 to 0 to 9 officers is an all-time high across the armed service, above World War II levels, and the actual battlefield experience of these officers is at an all-time low. Well, it depends. If war is changed, a battlefield expertise, when you don't even want experts, is kind of a misnomer, right? The next president should limit the continued advancement of many of the existing cadre, many of whom have been advanced by prior administrations for reasons other than their war-fighting prowess. So you're saying that not only do you want more people to join the military and give them more opportunities, you're also saying cease any career advancements within the military. That's not going to get people to want to join the military. It's also encouraging war when what you're saying is to encourage peacetime, except for China. So you just can't advance in the military unless there is a war going on, which puts an incentive on people to want to go into unnecessary wars? Alex has a really good question. Why can't we do that with the military money with the money we already give the military? I don't know. It seems like something that could really easily be done, and it isn't done. And I don't know. Do we know who the primary authors of this proposal are? Yes. Hold on, I'm on page 136. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'll scroll up and show you because I don't remember the name of the guy. Chris, I think. Sorry, give me 1 second. Because the foreword didn't have a name on it, but the chapter did. Christopher Miller is the guy's name. I think Tom mentioned in the chat that he actually knows this guy. That is at 136, right? Thanks. There we go. DOD intelligence. Sorry, excuse me. I gotta sneeze. I saw some video of one of the authors being brought before a military committee, and he was being torn to shreds. If you can find that and send that to me, I would love to watch it after this as some kind of like cathartic, make me feel better situation. DoD intelligence. Our national defense establishment must evolve to meet the rapid, profound, and dynamic change in the global landscape, but absent significant effort to evaluate and retool in critical areas, including our intelligence and security portfolios, America's competitive advantage against rivals and adversaries is at serious risk. However, for any structural changes to succeed, the crisis in our intelligence community, IC/Defense Intelligence Enterprise, DIE, leadership must be addressed. The DIE accounts. They said, like, give people less fucking shit, but then didn't actually say anything about why or how. Okay, whatever. The DIE accounts for the bulk of the intelligence community personnel and a significant portion of its budget. Of the ICES's 17 elements, 8 are within DoD, 2 are independent, and 7 belong to various other departments and agencies. Overall, weird bracket for the T. Quote, the DoD provides 86% of the personnel who conduct intelligence activities in both military and civilian, end quote. The Defense Intelligence Enterprise must deliver accurate, unbiased, and timely insights consistently with clarity, objectivity, and independence. But they all need to agree with whatever POTUS wants, by the way. If they continue on their current path, however, both the DIE and the intelligence community writ large will continue to provide inaccurate and politicized intelligence assessments that mislead policymakers. Needed reforms. Improve the intelligence process. Defense intelligence assets have been committed to the protection and defense intelligence assets have been committed to the prosecution of operational campaigns since September 11, 2021, at the expense of our strategic objectives, and this has led to increased risks. Further, the DID has evolved into a customer-based model with the DIE/IC trying to be supportive of policy direction at the expense of analytical integrity. Citation needed. The result has been significant politicization of intelligence. 1. Establish unbiased intelligence reporting. Tom said, Miller resigned in an interesting way. First, he put out a positive statement in support of Trump, then rescinded it on January 6th in order to resign again to put out a statement against Trump. Oh, resign again. Wow, wacky. Yuck. What odd. Anyway. 1. Establish unbiased intelligent reporting from DIE/IC senior leaders. And then he went on to write this in support of Trump. As a leader of the DIE, Under Secretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security should provide a top-line dissenting or clarifying view of DIE and IC assessments as needed. Sounds like he just did that to avoid any repercussions of involvement in January 6th, but hey, that's none of my business. 2. Align collection and analysis with vital national interests, countering China and Russia. 3. Establish an active global Federation intelligence framework with allies and partners and our combatant commands Avoid the temptation to neglect areas that appear less pertinent but that support a convergence of threats and critical requirements to sustain those threats. 4. Establish and sustain feedback loops to provide insight and direction for continuous improvement and accountability. We must revisit our assessments and understand where we got it right and where we got it wrong. Yeah, being able to take criticism. That sounds like the Republican Party. 5. Better exploit publicly available information, PAI data, and foster innovation and improve collection and analysis. We must end the practice of multiple DIE organizations paying to acquire the same PAI data and invest more in machine learning, ML. Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, that's what you need. And artificial intelligence, AI, to exploit open source and classified intelligence data. What the fuck? Remove policy obstacles that impede available technical solutions and tailor approaches in order to preclude corruption at the point of collection. 7. Develop statistical discrimination techniques based on relative value to deal with the volume and velocity of available data and information, which are rapidly exceeding our ability to exploit and analyze available data and information efficiently. The problem here is machine learning and AI isn't going to be able to tell you which data is valuable and which isn't. You need people for that, and for people to do that, they need to be trained, and you need to pay them, and you need more of them. You unga bunga fucking monkey brains. Good lord. I take it back. Monkeys are better at this. I take it back. Monkeys are socially capable. Bleh. Oh, thank you. Forbes breaking news. How long is this? Let me see. Oh my god, shut up. No, leave me alone. No, I take it back. I'm sorry. Let me see. I just want to see how long it is. Oh, it's only 5 minutes. Okay, well, we might watch this at the end. Expand the integration of intelligence activities. The prevalence of asymmetric warfare requires defense intelligence to leverage the unique authorities and capabilities of U.S. Department and agencies, as well as our partners and allies to competitive advantage. 1. Create and improve cyber defense capability. We must reevaluate the dual hat structure between the National Security Agency, the NSA, and the U.S. Cyber Command, USC Cybercom. USCYBERCOM. 2. Resurrect our economic analysis capabilities to improve our ability to counter Chinese whole-of-government strategies that combine security with predatory economic objectives. Oh, weird. That's something I said, isn't it? 3. Resurrect critical thinking. What? Guys, critical thinking is dead. It's gone. We need to resurrect it with our critical thinking capabilities. Resurrect critical thinking to provide true strategic intelligence that will enable the U.S. to counter global adversaries and emerging technologies, such as adversary advances and hypersonics, unmanned aerial systems, UAS, cyber domain, advanced fighter aircraft, and advanced undersea capabilities more effectively. Guys, hear me out. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but hear me out for a second. I don't think, given the information that Tom has dropped in here, I suspect that this wasn't actually really written for Trump. This was written for Trump to use and get puppeteered about. But this is actually written for somebody who is more capable at being a dictator and being subversive and subtle than Trump actually is. That's what I think whom this is actually for. This is for an American Vladimir Putin, and Trump is not an American Vladimir Putin. In my opinion. You think that's a stupid acronym? What became the Space Force was formerly known as US Spacecom. Oh god, get me out. 4. Rebuild human intelligence. Human. HUMINT. Then invest in your fucking education system, you nuggets. A counterintelligence CI and improve their integration with defense and offensive cyber operations. 5 is they're basically like, guys, make Skynet. That's how we defend ourselves in America. Skynet. Establish true alignment between DoD and DHS, both improve the defense of critical U.S. infrastructure and national border security, and to develop vital information that establishes defense against foreign targeted disruptions. Restore accountability and public trust. Minty humans. I like my humans mint flavored. In recent years, public transit. I like to steep my humans in a mint tea concoction. In recent years, public trust in defense intelligence has eroded by, for example, flawed assumptions leading up to our Afghanistan withdrawal. Oh, yeah? Didn't have anything to do with the 9/11 Iraq war and the bullshit that American people were fed? No? It wasn't? No? Flawed Russia-Ukraine assessments. Oh, you mean that everybody thought Russia was way more powerful than they actually were able to pull off in Ukraine? Is that what you mean? Divergence in relations with key Gulf allies and voids being filled by Russia and China around the world. For trust to be restored. What void is Russia filling around the world? The fuckers got kicked out of the G7. The fuck are you talking about? For trust to be restored and sustained, officials must be held accountable. I guess I'll put that in. Let's call this, voids being filled. Filled voids around the world by Russia and China. This is going on the wall. It's page 139. Damn, I feel like we're actually making progress, so that's nice. Sometimes it just doesn't feel like that. I'm gonna run out of stickies, by the way. Russia is becoming a void. I mean, if you want to say that, like, China is filling a void of constructing and being employed to build technology, then yes. But whatever. I don't think that's what's being referred to here, but whatever. 1. Restore DIE critical thinking. Establish mechanisms to restore analytic integrity and return to true intelligence-driven operations. The next administration should eliminate the conflict of interest in the current customer-based model, in which the customer is always right, by enforcing time-tested procedures that guarantee independent analysis, even if it means challenging policymakers' assumptions. The Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security's leadership role should be expanded to include providing analytic top-line views and improve DIE transparency by highlighting diverging views. Yeah, fuck the American people and their opinions. They don't know what they're talking about. They're stupid. 2. Elevate the DIE's voice in national policy discussion, commensurate with the DIE's 75% share of the IC budget, present defense intelligence to senior policymakers either independently to avoid all source-based or consensus product like the national intelligence estimates. Eliminate peripheral intelligence obligations that do not advance military readiness. In 2019, following the catastrophic 2015 data breach at the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, the OPM, the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency, DCSA, didn't the Pentagon get hacked like twice in a row or something? Accept transfer of the responsibility to conduct security clearance and suitability investigations for 95% of the U.S. government's civilian workforce. This decision, which you have to have people in Congress and the Senate and in office that understand technology, as opposed to the people that are currently there. This decision, which grew out of an intention to deconstruct OPM, was wrong-headed on many levels, but I'm not going to tell you what they were or why, and made the federal bureaucracy dependent on a new overlay of DoD bureaucracy, in a sense instilling DoD control of civilian managers. This function should be returned to OPM except for military security clearance investigations. U.S. Army. The U.S. Army's mission is, weird bracket, quote, to deploy, fight, and win our nation's wars by providing ready, prompt, and sustained land dominance by Army forces across full spectrum of conflict as part of the joint force, end quote. Today, however, the Army cannot execute its land dominance mission. War has changed. The U.S. Army is at an inflection point that is marked by more than a decade of steadily eroding budgets and diluted buying power, and appreciable degradation in readiness and training capacity, a near crisis in recruiting and retention for critical personnel, and a bevy of aging weapon systems that no longer provide a qualitative edge over peer and near-peer competitors, but will not be replaced in the near term. So this is basically, they're just saying the current U.S. military sucks. Particularly the Army. And this is on page 140. I want a citation. I want a citation for all of that they just said. Citation. All of these challenges are set against the backdrop of a complex and dynamic global geopolitical environment that is exemplified and exaggerated by the triumph of our adversaries in Afghanistan after the 20-year struggle there, as well as recent Russia outrage in the Ukraine and China's bellicosity both on its borders and in its surrounding disputed regions. Taiwan. Triumph of our adversaries in Afghanistan? Is that what happened? Okay. In spite of these, I'm adding that, this whole thing is added in the one that I wrote down. In spite of these ever-increasing operational pulls, our Army is consistently being asked to do more with fewer resources. The status quo is further marked by a pervasive, politically driven, top-down focus on progressive social policies. Why is the social policies the thing that's doing that? You haven't this is a non sequitur. You're saying that this is a problem and saying that they need to spend more money, but you're saying that the social policies are what is doing this, as opposed to the money, the change in money. This doesn't make any sense. That emphasizes matters like so-called diversity, equality, and inclusion and climate change, often to the detriment of the Army's core warfighting mission. Citation needed. Needing reforms. Rebuild the Army. The total Army budget has decreased by roughly 11% since 2018, perilously affecting the service's readiness and ability to... You spend so much fucking money on the military. Unfucking believable. To train and procure new personnel and equipment. Declining budgets and decreased buying power have forced the military to lower training standards and opportunities to train, proposed reduction and end strength/military construction programs to historically low levels, and scale back essential modernization programs. 1. Increase the Army's budget to remain the world's preeminent landowner. Jesus. Accelerate the development and procurement of the 6 current Army modernization priorities: long-range long-range precision fires, the next generation combat vehicle, future vertical lift, and Army network air and missile defense and soldier lethality end bracket, to replace worn out and outdated combat systems to ensure ground combat dominance. 3. Increase funding to improve Army training and operational readiness. 4. Increase Army force structure by 50,000 to handle 2 major regional contingency simulations. So you want to get 500,000 more individuals in the Army force, but you want to remove women, gay people, and trans people. regardless of which way they're transitioning. Oh. You think you okay? Do you think that this would be a thing? That if they thought they could get away with proposing this, they would. They would say that recruit women to the military to produce more military personnel and male combatants that are born and bred into the military. I bet you they would. 5. Reform recruiting efforts. The Army missed its 2022 recruitment goal by 25% or 15,000 soldiers. Focus on deployability and sustained operations. The U.S. Army's very lethal ground force capability is irrelevant if it cannot quickly deploy to locations for employment in decisive operations to secure our global security interests. Additionally, Army logisticians provide the ground transportation bracket of both personnel and equipment and bracket fuel, food, and water, munitions bracket bombs and bullets, because we don't know what munitions are, end bracket, medical supplies and services, and veterinary services, food safety in brackets, veterinary, that are critical to sustainment of the other services. 1. Immediately increase the production and stockpiling of critical munitions and repair parts. 2. Prioritize expedition logistics and all force design and operational planning to guarantee entry into contested theater of war. 3. Increase the level of joint force training, synchronization, and coordination focused on logistics. 4. Prepare. Stop shooting your allies would be a good start. 4. Prepare to deploy forces from degraded U.S.-based transportation infrastructure that is compromised by opposing forces. Transform Army culture and training. The Army can no longer serve as the nation's social testing ground. A rebuilt Army that is focused again on its core war-fighting mission and empowered it with the tools, resources, and authorities it needs to accomplish that mission must be the next administration's highest defense priority. Basically, listen, military personnel, it's your job to follow orders of what POTUS tells you to do. You're not allowed to say no if POTUS tells you that you need to shoot protesters in the street. Are you asking if they want women to be breeding stock for pumping out soldiers? What kind of question is that? Of course they do. They'll tell you as much if they trust you, right? Right? That's kind of what they're setting up here, right? In not so many words. I'm not crazy, am I? I don't think so. I don't think it's me. 1. Stop using the Army as a testbed for social evolution. Where the fuck is that happening? Misusing the Army in this way detracts from its core purpose while doing little to reshape the American social structure. The Army no longer reflects national demographics to the degree that it did before 1974 when the draft was eliminated. So they want to bring the draft back. Yikes. 2. Demand accountability. I don't think that's a citation needed, but I'm not writing that down. Demand accountability in senior leaders to reverse the decline in public support for military service. That you think it's their fault? Reestablish the experiential base for planning, execution, and leadership in Army formations and large-scale operations. Currently, there are no general or field-grade officers who served as planners or commanders against near-peer adversary in combat. I'm a citation needed that one too, but I don't know how to check that. I'm not really sure what I would need to look up to do that. If anybody else out there knows, please let me know. Examine the logic of emergency Army concepts about employing mass long-range fires and effects without considering how to gain advantage by closing with the dominating and adversary on land. 5. Recognize that high-intensity land combat operations cannot be sustained through short-term individual or unit rotation in the style of the sustained low-intensity campaigns conducted over the last 20 years. Yeah, Once you're in war, you're stuck there. Fuck you. No rotation. You don't get a break. You live there now. Because we don't care about the military. We don't actually care about the personnel on the ground. That's what they're telling you. Fuck you. That's what they're telling you. I don't know how to be more clear about that. 6. Transform how the National Guard is employed during extended operations short of declared war to preclude back-to-back federal and state deployment of National Guard soldiers in order to stabilize and preserve military volunteerism on our communities. 3. Revamp Army school curricula to concentrate on preparation for large-scale land operations that focus on defeating a peer threat. Prepare for war because they want to go to war. Address the underlying casual issues driving increasing Army suicide rates, which have surpassed pre-World War II rates and are now eclipsing the rate among civilians. Gee, why could that be? Casual issues. U.S. Navy. As noted at the beginning of this chapter, the U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power to, quote, provide and maintain a Navy, end quote. Inherent in this phrase is a recognition that there is a vital national interest in the maritime environment and that this national interest requires sustained planning and investment. I, for one, am in support of the AUKUS. This is as true today as it was almost 250 years ago and will remain true into the future. The U.S. Navy, or USN, exists for two... That is not faster to say, by the way. Exists for two primary reasons: to protect, prompt, sustain, and effective combat power globally, both at sea and ashore, and to deter aggression by potential adversaries by maintaining a forward operating presence in conjunction with allies and partners. Today, the People's Republic of China, People's Liberation Army Navy, PLAN, PLAN, can challenge the U.S. Navy's, the USN's, I hate that, ability to accomplish its mission in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. In the production, employment, and control of maritime forces, the USN must consider the scope and rate of technological change and, where appropriate, adapt its processes and workforce deployment. In balancing the necessary long-term industrial model of naval platforms against emerging short-term opportunities, the USN must take account of advances that may present vulnerabilities and risks, as well as what is assured and secure. Do you guys want me to bring on some U.S. Navy veterans to talk about what's about to be said in the rest of this? And maybe if I can find some do you guys want me to get some prior military people to come in and talk about this kind of stuff? Because I can try and do that if you guys are interested. You let me know. The production blah 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 blah, and balancing long-term blah 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 blah, vulnerable risks as well as assured and secure. Needed reforms. Invest in and expand force structure. The USN's organizing principle remains platform-centered. Vessels manned by sailors, the manned surface and subsurface forces act in concert with land-based, air-based, and space-based forces to project power outside sovereign territory, principally by operating in international waters. Investments must be closely coordinated with these other elements of military power. 1. Build a fleet of more than 355 ships. There's a citation of 26. 2. Develop and field unmanned systems to augment the manned forces. 3. Require that range and lethality be the key factors in all procurement and sustainment decisions for ship, aircraft, and munitions. Reestablish the General Board. In contrast with the Naval General Board that served ship deployment so well during the interwar period and current joint processes for defining the requirements for major defense acquisitions, is not well suited for long-term planning of the sort that is needed for USN fleet architecture and shipbuilding. But they said at the beginning that they didn't want budgets to be established by long-term stuff. They're like, we want short-term shit, not long-term shit. We want short-term budgeting, but long-term planning? The Interwar General Board should serve as a model, empowered with the final decision authority over all requirements requirements documents. I hate you. I hate your grammar. For all requirements documents concerning ships and the major defense systems fielded on ships, the individual board members would ensure a broad base of knowledge as well as independent thinking. Establish a rapid capabilities office. The USN must transition technology into warfighting capability more rapidly. It must foster a culture of innovation that includes connecting theoretical and intangible ideals with real production environments that produce tangible and practical outcomes, and adapting proven processes to advanced material solutions. That doesn't mean anything. That means nothing. 1. Harness innovation and willingness to tolerate risk so that, quote, good enough systems can be fielded rapidly. Yeah, okay. That's not problematic at all. Like I said, let's just throw quality testing out the window. We don't need to make sure that our ships and personnel are safe if we can, just fuck around and find out. 2. Use the Space Development Agency as a model. Sure. Yeah, sure, because the Navy isn't completely different than space development. 3. Establish an oversight board of directors made up of service chief, service secretary, and undersecretary for defensive acquisition and sustainment. Why? So they can be directly controlled by POTUS? Without any checks and balances? From professionals? Accelerate the purchase of key munitions. It takes years to build and maintain navies, but only hours to expend their ordnance in combat. Yeah, sure. The USN must be prepared to expend large quantities of air-launched and sea-launched stealthily precision cruise missiles against targets both at sea and ashore. Additionally, modern air defense requires the use of high-performance surface-to-air missiles. 1. Produce key munitions at the maximum rate with significant capacity. 2. Working with the Congress. Employ the widest possible range of techniques to enhance the munition supply chain workforce. Enhance warfighter development. The USN requires a variety of documented qualifications for personnel to advance in their careers and assume leadership positions. But you just said to not let anybody advance. What the fuck? It also requires individual professional qualifications that are focused on warfighting. 1. Mandate qualifications that demonstrate an understanding of core competence in collective integrated warfighting, especially based on current plans and technologies. 2. Elevate the headquarters staff focused on warfighter development N7 within the Office of the Chief Naval Operations, or the OPNAV, and empower it to develop such requirements. 3. Require that war games be utilized as experiential learning environments for the participants as a prerequisite for achieving career milestones, bracket department heads, commanding officers, and major commanders. So the thing you were saying shouldn't be in the military and needs to be paused in the military, you want to advance it and do more of it in the Navy? What? 4. Highlight in training and leader development that USN forces can and must maintain the ability to operate from and or defend sovereign territory, to include our allies and partners. 5. Train to balance effects from kinetic to non-kinetic and from lethal to non-lethal through effective command and control. The U.S. Air Force. The U.S. Air Force today lacks a force structure with the lethality, survivability, and capacity to fight a major conflict with a great power like China, deter nuclear threats, and meet its other operational requirements under the National Defense Strategy. For 30 years, the Air Force has received less annual funding, bracket if pass-through funding defined as money in the Air Force budget that does not go to the Air Force is removed from the equation. So they're getting less if we take out all the stuff they're getting than the Army and Navy have received. This underfunding has, and now we're going to base our entire premise off of this faulty bullshit. Okay. This underfunding has forced the Air Force to cut its forces and forego modernizing aging weapons systems that were never designed to operate in current threat environments. Yeah, why would they be? They were designed to operate in the current threat at the time. And that's how time works. And are structurally and mechanically exhausted. The result is the Air Force that is the oldest, smallest, and least ready in its history. Dictatorship loves dumbing down a nation because it makes them feel smarter and comfort zone and easy cop out of moral responsibility. It's also easier to take advantage of people who don't know any better. The decline in Air Force capacity and capability is occurring at the same time of the security environment demands the very options that the Air Force uniquely provides. Combatant commanders routinely request more Air Force capabilities than the service has the capacity to provide. The Air Force today simply cannot accomplish all of the missions it is required to perform. The Air Force has consistently stated on the official record that it is not sized to meet the mission demands placed on it by the various U.S. combatant commands. A 2018 study, The Air Force We Need, showed a 24% deficit in the Air Force capacity to meet the needs of the National Defense Strategy. Those conclusions remain valid and are more pronounced today because of subsequent aircraft retirements. The demand is also higher because of world events. To understand, because we want to go to war with China. That's what this means. To understand these trends, one only needs to consider that the Air Force's future 5-year budget plan retires 1,436 aircraft while buying just 467. This makes a reduction of 996 aircraft by 2027. Yeah, if we just don't take any nuance to what's going on and why, definitely you can figure that out. Hi April. The net result is a force that is smaller, older, and less ready at a time when demand is burgeoning. Needed reforms. Increase spending and budget accuracy in lines with threat-based strategy. Returning the U.S. military to a force that can achieve deterrence or win, which doesn't work. We know doesn't work. That's what 9/11 is. Or win in a fight. That's a little bit reductive. I'm sorry. Or win in a fight if necessary. Requirements. Return to a threat-based defense strategy. Bullies. They want the American military to be successful bullies again, but I don't think that's going to work because the nuclear cat is out of the bag. Again, I recommend watching our previous Tavern and listen to Amanya talking about it. Real budget growth combined with a more equitable distribution of resources across the armed services that is the only realistic way to create a modernized Air Force with the capacity to meet the needs of international defense strategy. Additionally, as noted above, pass-through funding causes numbers of cited and current DoD budget documents to be higher than the dollar amount actually received by the Air Force. But no gay people, no trans people, no women. And none of their family members can be any of those things either. 1. Adopt a 2-war force defense strategy with scenarios for each service that will allow the Air Force to attain resources it requires by developing a force sizing construct that reflects what is required to accomplish strategic objectives. 2. Eliminate pass-through funding, which has grown more than $400 billion per year and has caused the Air Force to be chronically underfunded for decades. 3. Increase the Air Force budget by 5% annually after adjusting for inflation to reverse the decline in size, age, and readiness and facilitate the transition to a more modern, lethal, and survivable force. How's this going to make you guys money? I thought that was something that they wanted to focus on. Reduce near-term and mid-term risk. Increasing the Air Force acquisition of the next generation's capabilities that either are or soon will be in production will increase the ability of the United States to deter or defeat near-term to mid-term threats. 1. Increase F-35A procurement to 60 to 80 per year. Are you procuring these from Boeing, by the way? I'm curious to know that. 2. Build the capacity for the B-21 production rate of 15 to 18 aircraft per year, along with applicable elements of the B-21 long-range strike family of systems. 3. Increase Air Force airlift and aerial refueling capacity to support agile combat employment operations that generate combat sorties from a highly dispersed posture in both Europe and the Pacific. 4. Develop and buy larger quantities of advanced mid-range weapon, 50 nm to 200 nm, that are sized to maximize targets per sortie for stealth aircraft flying in contested environments against targets set that could exceed 100,000 aim points. That's a lot of jargon in this part. 5. Accelerate the development and production of the Sentinel intercontinental ballistic missile to reduce the risk of inherent in an aging Minuteman III force in light of China's nuclear modernization breakout. 6. Increase the number of EC-37B electronic warfare aircraft from 10 to 20 in order to achieve minimum capacity to engage growing threats from China across the electromagnetic spectrum. Invest in future Air Force programs and efforts. Increasingly capable adversaries require new capabilities. Can you tell I'm getting to the end of my voice? To enable victory against those adversaries. 1. Attain an operationally optimized advanced battle management system as the Air Force element in the DoD Joint All-Domain Command and Control Enterprise. 2. Produce the next generation air dominant system of systems, air moving target indication, other sensors, communications, command and control weapons, and uninhabited aerial vehicles. What would happen if everybody just stopped selling anything to America for like 20 minutes? I'm just curious about what that would look like. Apropos of nothing. 3. Achieve moving target engagement capabilities and capacity against sea, surface, and ground mobile targets at scale necessary to meet the needs of the national defense strategy. 4. Build resilient basing, sustainment, and communications for survivability in a contested environment. 5. Establish a vigorous and sufficiently funded electromagnetic spectrum operations recovery plan to make up more than 20 years of neglect of this mission area. Marine Corps, U.S. Marine Corps. The Marine Corps, USMC, in the Maritime Land Force of the Department of Defense and Department of the Navy. It serves a critical role in an expeditionary amphibious force that can project power from sea to shore and beyond while performing other specialized missions like securing America's diplomatic outpost abroad. Between the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2021, the conclusion of the United States military operations in Afghanistan in August 2022, the Marine Corps engaged in extended operations ashore as directed by the Secretary of Defense, leaving it with little opportunity or ability to train and execute the naval and amphibious operations for which it is uniquely suited and directed by law. This lengthy divergence from its primary mission led to deep concern that the corps have become a second land army, quotes, by whom? Who was concerned about this? Prompting senior Marine Corps leaders to push for the service to return to the sea. In addition, the USMC spent nearly 2 decades fighting counterinsurgency, I was thrown off by the dash. Counterinsurgency wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and developed capabilities that were specifically geared to those fights, but have limited utility in scenarios involving evenly matched and advanced enemies or amphibious operations that are necessary for the projection of naval power. As a result, Marine Corps Commandant General David H. Berger developed and began to implement Force Design 2030, a plan that, if completed, would be the most radical transformation to the Marine Corps since World War II. The successful implementation of this force redesign, coupled with the reforms in the Marine Corps' personnel system and the Navy's amphibious shipbuilding plans will be critical to ensuring the Corps' future combat effectiveness. Needed reforms. Divest systems to implement the Force Design 2030 transformation. Divesting equipment that is less relevant to distributed low-signature operations in the contested maritime environment will make funds available for modernization. 1. Transform the USMC source structure. A. Eliminate all USMC law enforcement battalions. What? Transform at least one Marine infantry regiment into a Marine littoral regiment. C. Reduce the size of the remaining infantry battalions. 2. Divest system or equipment that are better suited to heavier U.S. Army units. A. Maintain divestments of M1 Abrams tanks. B. Eliminate the majority of tube artillery, M777 batteries. C. Reduce the number of advanced amphibious assault vehicles and the number of their replacements. 3. Use funds so the Marine Corps gets less shit and the Air Force gets more shit. The U.S. is the number one exporter of goods in the world. The world would suffer if they stopped giving us shit. Of course they would. I'm not saying that people wouldn't suffer if we stopped giving you shit. I'm saying what would happen. Like, I understand, like, it would be a really bad time and a difficult time for everybody. I'm not saying that, like, oh no, Canada will have less oranges. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's that simple. I'm just curious about, like, what that would look like if America were to just isolate itself like that under those kinds of scenarios. Anyway, like serious tariffs or, like, embargoes. Anyway, whatever. It's a conversation for another time. That's like a rum and coke kind of topic. Use the funds made available by divestments of systems to support new systems that are geared to the likely needs of future conflicts. A. Increase the number of rocket artillery batteries, or the HIMARS, HIMARS. B. Increase the number of upgraded light armored vehicle, or the LAV or LAV companies. C. Increase the number of unmanned aerial systems and anti-air systems, including counter-USA systems. D. Develop long-range strike missiles and anti-ship missiles for the Corps. And E. Modernize USMC infantry equipment. And I am going to point out that, again, they have changed formatting. Transform the USMC personnel paradigm. More than other, I gotta amuse myself somehow. More than other services in the USMC relies heavily on junior non-commissioned officers, or NCOs, to staff key positions across the force, but especially in combat arms. For example, E4s routinely hold squad leader billets when the Army normally has E6s in those billets. The nature of more distributed operations and the increasingly complex responsibilities of a Marine Corps rifle squad and platoon under Force Design 2030 will only put more responsibility on the backs of squad leaders and platoon sergeants, increasing the need for more senior Marines in those critical positions. Additionally, the Corps needs to improve its retention of junior NCOs after their first enlistments. The Marines have a much lower rate of re-enlistment than other branches. 1. Align the USMC's combat arms rank, but then stop treating them like shit. Align the USMC's combat arms rank structure with the U.S. Army squad leader billet are for E6s and platoon sergeants billets are for E7s. Listen, hear me out. Isn't the point of, like, the Marine Corps and it being, like, more heavy duty is that it's supposed to be more exclusive? I thought that was part of its point. 2. Create better incentives to retain talented junior NCOs, especially in infantry and other critical military occupational specialties. 3. Reduce unnecessary deployments to increase dwell time in order to enable a more robust primary military education. 4. Get women to join the military so that way we can inseminate them with our Navy SEALs to produce high-tier military officials that are trained from birth and make super soldiers. Aligned Navy Amphibious Shipbuilding with Force Designs 2023. The U.S. Navy has struggled for decades to maintain an amphibious fleet that could support USMC war plans around large-scale amphibious operations. In addition, amphibious shipbuilding has often had to compete against other priorities within a constrained budget and limited shipbuilding capacity. 1. Develop and produce light amphibious warships, LAWs, or LAWs, to support more distributed amphibious operations, especially in the Pacific. 2. Maintain between 28 and 31 larger amphibious warships, as opposed to 25 specified in current Navy shipbuilding plans, the 38 specified before 2020. Okay, I'm really hoping the U.S. Space Force is the last one. U.S. Space Force. U.S. Space Force conducts global space operations to sustain and enhance air, land, and sea effectiveness, lethality, and superiority by providing secure broadband global communications, brackets, precision, position, navigation, and timing accuracy, end bracket, attack warning and threat tracking and target capability, bracket, real-time intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance information, end bracket, and their assured continuity of operations both by defending U.S. assets and by conducting offensive operations that are capable of imposing unacceptable losses on adversaries that might seek to attack them. The U.S. Space Force, or the USSF, was established to ensure continual global and theater combat support from space to deter attacks against U.S. space assets and prevail in space should deterrence fail. If USSF posture was conceived as a balance of offensive and defensive deterrent capabilities designed for maximum effectiveness. Needed reforms. Reverse the Biden administration's defensive posture. We want more defensive, so we're going to reverse the defensive. Okay. The Biden administration has eliminated almost all offensive deterrent capabilities. Our Jewish space lasers, no! And instead will rely solely on defensive capabilities of disaggregation, maneuver, and reconstitution, the most costly and slowest and ultimately the most fragile architecture selection. 1. Reestablish offensive capabilities to guarantee a favorable balance of forces, efficiently manage and full deterrent spectrum, and seriously complicate enemy calculations of successful first strike against U.S. space assets. 2. Restore architectural balance in U.S. Space Force, both offensively and defensively, to restore deterrence, dominance, effectively and quickly. 3. Rapidly expand space control capability to include cislunar space. You can't call it that! You're supposed to be removing this gendered language. Get the fuck out of here. Oh. I want someone to deter attacks against space assets. Exactly how does one go about doing that? I want someone to just imagine a possibility of how someone deters an attack against space assets. I don't know. My only answer to that is Jewish space lasers. That's the only thing I can think of. Bracket, the region beginning at geosynchronous altitude and encompassing the moon, to provide early warning of an enemy attack. An alien enemy or a local enemy. 4. Seek arm control and rules of the road, understanding only when they are unambiguously, oh my god, they are unambiguously in the interests of the United States and its allies, and prohibit their unilateral implementation. And we're only doing things that are good for us and our friends. If it's good for everybody, we can't do it because we don't like some of those people. Which is foolish and naive and immature. Reduce overclassification. The USSF must move beyond the Cold War era culture of secrecy and overclassification that surrounds military space to facilitate greater coordination and synchronization of efforts across the government and commercial sectors, declassify appropriate information about terrestrial and on-orbit space capabilities that threaten the United States space constellation. Yeah, but isn't secrecy part of what deters people because they don't know about what a first strike is going to be, which is something you referenced a minute ago? Whatever. As well as those being pursued by our competitors to secure the principled right to counter them offensively. Implement policies suited to a mature USSF, no longer a newborn. The USSF has entered its 4th year of existence. Wow, they're not a newborn, they're 4 years old now, guys. And the lessons learned can be incorporated across all facets of the force to increase its effectiveness. 1. Restructure the current unity of effort structure to unity of command. 2. Lead the U.S. government's development of a clear and unambiguous declaration policy that the United States will operate at will in space and enforce these operations with capabilities that ensure effective deterrence and the ability to impose our will if necessary. 3. End the current study phase. My voice. End the current study phase of concept, development, and issue. I have to drop to a lower register because my voice is starting to hurt. Sorry, pardon me. End the current study phase of concept development and ensure necessary guidance for the development and fielding of offensive capabilities. 4. Alter the Space Development Agency currently, quote, fail early approach and transition to a methodology that maintains aggressive timelines but with significantly greater engineering rigor with special attention to sustainment, support, and fully integrated space operations. 5. I'm going to sound really bored, but that's because I have to slow down the inflection. Increase the number of general officer positions to ensure the Space Force's ability to compete for resource on a common basis with the other services. 6. Explore Cyber Command. Explore creation of a Space Force Academy to attract top astro students, engineers, and scientists, and develop astronauts. Okay, well then do better in your education system. The academy should be attached initially to a large existing research university like the California Institute of Technology or MIT, share facility and funding, and eventually be built separately to be on par with other service academies. U.S. Cyber Command, U.S. Cyber Command, or U.S. Cybercom, or USCYBERCOM, was established in 2010 by the Department of Defense to unify the direction of cyberspace operations, strengthen DoD cyberspace capabilities, and integrate and enhance U.S. cyber expertise. Oh, you mean experts? Has this become OnlyFans? Man, I don't know. This is going to turn into ASMR in a minute, and my voice is fucking toasted. Cyber capabilities and threats are evolving rapidly. Accordingly, a conservative administration should be especially sensitive to and prepared to meet the challenges presented by bureaucratic silos, inappropriately rigid tactical doctrine, and strategic thinking's history tendency to lag behind technological capabilities. The preliminary evidence from the war in Ukraine suggests that existing cyber doctrine and certain capabilities and target assumptions may be incorrect or misplaced. The following recommendations therefore presuppose that there will be a rigorous lesson learned analysis and reviewing of existing U.S. doctrine in light of the battle evidence. Needed reforms. Ensure that U.S. Cybercom is properly focused. Mission creep is leading to wasteful overlap with the Department of Homeland Security, National Security Agency, Department of Defense, and Central Intelligence Agency. 1. Separate U.S. Cybercom from National Security Agency per congressional direction. 2. Conduct effective offensive cyber effects operations at the tactical and strategic level. You mean get a hold of social media and get it under control? I mean, that might be a good idea. 3. Expand offensive cyber effects operations authorities by President Trump's classified national security presidential memorandum 13, quote, United States cybersecurity policy. Ex-President Trump. Current felon Trump ends U.S. cyber comms participation in federal efforts to fortify U.S. elections to eliminate the perception that the DoD is engaging in partisan politics. Increase U.S. cyber comms effectiveness. 1. Accelerate the... I can't even talk about that. That's a whole other thing. U.S. cyber comms effectiveness. 1. Accelerate the integration of cyber and electronic warfare EU doctrine and capabilities abiding by the time-tested norms. Pardon me. Excuse me 1 second. Norms of combined arms warfare. 2. Mandate the development teams will include both coders and soldiers, aircrew and soldiers with kinetic expertise at the platoon level. Mandate development teams will include both coders and soldier, aircrew, and... Okay. 3. Break the paradigm of cyber authority held at the strategic level. 4. Increase cyber resilience by, for example, protecting the nuclear command, control, and communications network, and the Air Force's Cyber Resilience Officer and Weapon System, CROWS, or CROWS. 5. Expand coordination of joint operations with allies. 6. Implement the Government Accountability Office's recommendation that the DoD Chief Information Officer, Commander of the U.S. Cybercom, and Commander of the Joint Forces Headquarters DoD Information Network, quote, align policy and system requirements to enable DoD to have enterprise-wide visibility of cyber incidents reporting and support tactical, strategic, and military strategies for response. End quote. Rationalize strategy and doctrine. 1. Update the October 2022 National Security Strategy to define DoD roles and responsibilities beyond existing platitudes. 2. Apply... talk to me about platitudes. Apply traditional deterrence strategies and principles for using cyber/EU in retaliation for foreign cyber attacks and or EW actions against U.S. infrastructure and citizens. Special Operation Forces. Even though America's conventional war in Afghanistan was a failure, Special Operation Force, is that established? Is that like a well-established thing? Is Afghanistan considered a failure? Can anybody confirm? I just don't know that. Is that true? Special Operation Forces of the United States Special Operations Command, USSOCOM, executed an extremely effective counterterrorism campaign. Oh yeah, sure. There has not been another major attack on the homeland. Global terror. That's not true. It's just happening in social media. It's just not a physical threat in that way. It's an attack on journalism. It's an attack on information, and it's attack on like divide and conquer kind of social media attack. Global terrorist threats are reduced and managed. Collaboration with international partners is effective, and units under USSOCOM are the most capable, experienced warfighters in 2 generations. There is a citation needed. There is a movement to reduce the scope and scale of USSOCOM's mission in favor of other service priorities in greater competition. This would be a mistake because USSOCOM can be employed effectively in great power competition. It makes sense to capitalize on OCOM's experience and repurpose its mission to include irregular warfare within the context of a greater power competition, thereby providing a robust organization that is capable of achieving strategic effectiveness that are critical both to our national defense and to the defense of our allies and partners around the globe. Irregular warfare should be used proactively to prevent state... Are you sure you want to use the term globe? Because I'm pretty sure a chunk of you are flat earthers. Proactively to prevent state and non-state actors from negatively affecting U.S. policies and objectives while simultaneously strengthening our regional partnerships. If we maintain irregular warfare traditional focus on non-state actors, we limit ourselves to addressing only the symptoms, non-state actors, not the problems themselves, China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Oh, they stated the goal was to have democracy in charge of Afghanistan when they pulled out. Considering the Taliban is in charge, yeah, it's a failure. Oh, okay. So the U.S. military or the U.S. engagement with Afghanistan failed to install a democracy by the time that they had left. Got it. I understood. Thank you. Make irregular warfare a cornerstone of security strategy. The U.S. can project strength through unified action with our interagency allies and partners by utilizing irregular warfare capabilities synchronized with elements of national power. Broadly redefined, irregular warfare to address current state and non-state actors is critical to countering irregular threats that range from the Chinese use of economic warfare to Russian disinformation and Islamist terrorism. A broad definition of irregular warfare in the national security strategy would allow for a whole-of-government approach, thereby providing resources and capabilities to counter threats and ultimately serve as credible deterrents at the strategic and tactical levels. We're 3 hours. Nah. I can't believe we haven't gotten to the end of this fucking chapter yet, of it just repeating itself. This could have been way shorter. Define irregular warfare as, quote, a means by which the United States uses all elements of national power to project influence abroad and counter state adversaries, defeat hostile non-state actors, deter wider conflict, and maintain peace in great power competition. They could have fucking made this a lot shorter and said more and been more useful, but they're not. This is the redundancy chapter. I know, right? 4. Characterize the state and non-state irregular threats facing the United States by region and national security strategy. 3. Direct that irregular warfare resources, capabilities, and strategies be incorporated directly into the overall national defense strategy instead of being regulated to a supporting document. 4. Establish a irregular warfare center of intelligence to help DoD train, equip, and organize to conduct irregular warfare as a core competency across the spectrum of competition, crisis, and conflict. Counter China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, globally. DoD, in conjunction with the interagency allies and partner nations, must work proactively to counter China's BRI around the globe. 1. Task USOCOM USOCOM and corresponding organizations in the Pentagon with conceptualized resourcing and executing regionally based operations under and to counter BRI. I'm struggling. I'm sorry. I'm 3 hours in. I'm sorry. I'm flubbing everything. BRI with a focus on nations that are key to our energy policy, international supply chain, and our defense industrial base. 2. Use regional and global information operations to highlight Chinese violations of exclusive economic zones, violations of human rights, and now you care about human rights. Interesting. And coercion along Chinese fault lines in Xinjiang's province. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. I apologize. Hong Kong and Taiwan, in addition to China's weaponization of sovereign debt. 3. Directly counter Chinese economic power with all elements of national power in North America, Central America, and the Caribbean to maintain maritime freedom of movement and protect the digital infrastructure of nations and other regions. Establish credible deterrence through irregular warfare to protect the homeland. A whole-of-government approach and willingness to employ cyber, information, economic, and counter-terrorist irregular warfare capabilities should be utilized to protect the homeland. You should stop enabling and start disabling companies to take advantage of China through America lines. 1. Include the designation of USSOCOM as lead for the execution of irregular warfare against hostile state and non-state actors in the national defense strategy. 2. Demonstrate a willingness to employ offensive cyber capabilities against adversaries who conduct cyber attacks against U.S. infrastructure, businesses, personnel, and governments. You mean Twitter? 3. Employ a name and shape approach by making information, regardless of the name and entities, that target the democratic process and international norms available in a transparent manner. Weren't you just saying to get them out of talking about whether or not the election was rigged or interfered with? 4. Work with the interagencies to employ economic warfare, lawfare, and diplomatic pressure against hostile state and non-state actors. 5. Maintain the authorities necessary for aggressive counterterrorism to posture against threats to the homeland. Nuclear deterrence. Oh, come on. Nuclear deterrence is one of the most critical elements of the U.S. national security as it forms the backdrop of U.S. military forces. Every operational plan relies on the assumption that nuclear deterrence holds. Ever since the U.S. first acquired nuclear weapons, administrations of both parties have pursued a strategy designed to deter nuclear and non-nuclear attacks, assured allies, and, in the event of nuclear employment, restore deterrence at the lowest possible cost to the United States. Today, however, America's ability to... the edge of my nose. What the fuck? America's ability to determine these goals is increasingly challenged by the growing nuclear threats posed by our adversaries. China is pursuing a strategic breakout of its nuclear forces, significantly shifting the nuclear balance and focusing the United States to learn how to deter two nuclear peer competitors, China and Russia, simultaneously for the first time in history. Oh my fucking god. Sorry, I just need to check something real quick. Fucking Christ, dude. This is unfucking reasonable. Hold on. YouTube. Sorry, I've just got to check something. It's not related. It's just something I got to check real quick. I apologize. Blah, blah, blah. Videos. Sorry. Okay. Alright. Completed. Sorry about that. Go back to... go away. Alright. Today, however, America's ability to meet these goals is increasingly challenging by the growing nuclear threat posed by our adversaries. China is pursuing a strategic breakout in nuclear forces, significantly shifting the nuclear balance and forcing the U.S. to learn how to deter two nuclear peer competitors, China and Russia, simultaneously for the first time in history. Russia is expanding its nuclear arsenal and using the threat of nuclear employment as a coercive tactic in its war in Ukraine. North Korea is advancing its nuclear capabilities. Iran is inching closer to nuclear capability. Meanwhile, the U.S. nuclear capability, all U.S. nuclear capability and infrastructure on which they rely date from the Cold War and are in dire need of replacement. The next administration will need to focus on continuing the efforts to modernize the nuclear triad while updating our strategy and capabilities to meet challenges presented by more threatening nuclear environment. Needed reforms, prioritizing nuclear modernization by removing all those gay people and components of the nuclear triad are far beyond their intended lifetimes and will need to be replaced over the next decade. This effort is required for the U.S. to maintain its nuclear triad and will be the bare minimum needed to maintain U.S. strategic nuclear deterrence. 1. Accelerate the timeline of critical modernization programs, which include the Sentinel Missile Long-Range Standoff Weapon, or the LROS, Columbia-class ballistic missile submarine B-21 bomber, and the F-35 dual-capable aircraft. 2. Reject any congressional proposal that would further extend the service lives of U.S. capabilities such as the Minuteman III ICBM. And 3. Ensure sufficient funding for Warhead Life Extension Programs, LEP, including the B-6112, the W-84, the W-87-1 mod, and the W-88 Alt 3370. Yeah, because who wants their older stuff to still be usable? Who would want something like that? Oh my god. Develop... I'm just trying to get to the end of the chapter. We're on page 156 for anybody who's following along. Develop the Sea-Launched Cruise Missile Nuclear SLCM-N. In 2018, the Trump administration proposed restoring the SLCM-N to help fill a growing gap in U.S. non-strategic capabilities and improve deterrence against limited nuclear attacks. The Biden administration has canceled this program in its 2022 Nuclear Posture Review, or NPR. The next president should support and accelerate funding of the development of SLCM-N with the goal of deployment by the end of the decade. Account for China's nuclear expansion to ensure... Oh my god, it's just the same thing. to ensure its ability, just say to counter China, and these are the things that China is doing. This is how we should develop our things. Army, Navy, blah, 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 blah. Done. Easy. Why is this so fucking long? Because they want it to be long, because they don't want you to read it. They don't want you to know what it says in here, because they're sneaking and hiding bullshit in it. To ensure its ability to deter both Russia and the growing Chinese nuclear threat, the U.S. will need more than the bare minimum of nuclear modernization. President Biden's 2022 NPR described the problem but proposed no recommendations to restore or maintain nuclear deterrence. 1. Consider procuring more modernized nuclear systems such as the Sentinel missile or the LRSO than currently planned. 2. Improve the ability to just add more. Yeah, that'll solve the problem, I guess. Improve the ability of the United States to utilize the Triad's upload capacity in case of a crisis. 3. Review what capabilities, in addition to the SLCM-N, for example, non-strategic weapons or new warhead designs, are needed to deter the unique Chinese threat. Restore the nuclear infrastructure. The United States must restore its necessary... Do you think China will never let me go to China after I read this out loud? I mean, I think there's other reasons why they wouldn't want me to go to China and I would be rejected from going to China, which is, fine and all well and good. I'm just wondering if this would be, explicitly a thing, out of curiosity. Restore nuclear infrastructure. The United States must restore its necessary nuclear infrastructure so that it is capable of producing and maintaining nuclear weapons. 1. Accelerate... That was it? Okay. I'm here for that. Short and sweet. 1. Accelerate the effort to restore plutonium pit production, which is essential to both modern warhead programs for recapitalizing the stockpile. Plutonium pit production. I'm putting that on the wall. I haven't put a lot of things on the wall this time, but that's going on the wall. That sounds sussy to me. That's all I'm saying. Continue to invest in rebuilding infrastructure, including facilities at the national laboratories that support nuclear weapons development. 3. Restore readiness to test nuclear weapons at the Nevada National Security Site to ensure the ability of the United States to respond quickly to asymmetric technology surprises. Correct orientation arms control. The U.S. should agree to arms control agreements only if they help advance the interests of the United States of its allies. 1. Reject proposals for nuclear disarmament that are contrary to the goal of bolstering deterrence. Yeah, why would everybody agreeing not to use this awful thing that nobody wants to use be a good idea for deterrence? That would deter people, guys. I don't know what to... Pursue arms control in a way to secure the national security interests of the U.S. and its allies rather than as an end in itself. 3. Prepare. The light is just glaring at me right now. It's awful. Prepare to compete in order to secure U.S. interests should arms control efforts continue to fail. Missile defense. Missile defense is a critical component of the U.S. national security architecture. It can help deter attacks by instilling doubt that an attack will work as intended, take advisory cheap shots off the table, and limit the perceived value of missiles as a tool of coercion. It allows space for diplomacy during a crisis and can protect the United States and allied forces, critical assets, and populations if deterrence fails. Adversaries are relying increasingly on missiles to achieve their aims. China and Russia, in addition to their vast growing ballistic missile inventories, are deploying new hypersonic glide vehicles and investing in new ground launch, air launch, and sea launch cruise missiles that uniquely challenge the United States in different domains. North Korea has pursued an aggressive missile testing program and is becoming increasingly belligerent towards South Korea and Japan. Yeah. That's true. Iran continues to maintain a missile arsenal that is capable of striking the United States and allied assets in the Middle East and Europe, and its rocket launches demonstrate that it either has or is developing the ability to build ICBMs. Missile defense has been under-prioritized and defunded in recent years. In the light of these growing threats, the incoming administration should treat missile defense as a top priority. Needed reforms. Champion the benefits of missile defense. Despite its deterrence and damage limitation benefits, opponents argue incorrectly that U.S. missile defense is destabilizing because it threatens Russia and China's second strike capabilities. One, reject claims made by the left that missile defense is destabilizing, while acknowledging that Russia and China are developing their own advanced missile defense systems. Is that because it's untrue? Why is this the left? I don't understand. I thought this was not I thought this was bipartisan. What the fuck? Commit to keeping homeland missile defense off the table in any arms control negotiation with Russia and China. Strengthen homeland ballistic missile defense. The United States currently deploys 44 ground-based interceptors, GBIs, as part of its ground-based mid-course defense, or GMD, system to defend the homeland against North Korea. But as North Korea improves its missile program, this system is at risk of falling behind threat. One, by at least 64 of the next generation interceptors, or NGI, which is more advanced than the GBI, for an eventual uniform fleet of interceptors. The Biden administration currently plans to buy only 20. Two, consider additional steps to strengthen the GMD system, such as a layered missile defense or third interceptor site on the East Coast. Increased development of regional missile defense as the Ukraine conflict amply demonstrates U.S. regional missile defense capabilities are very limited. The United States has been unable to supply our partners reliably with any capabilities, and the number of types of regional missiles defense platforms are less than the United States needs for its own defense. The United States should prioritize procurement of more regional defense systems, such as Theater High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD, or THAAD, THAAD. Standard Missile 3 and Patriot missiles. Change the U.S. missile defense policy. Historically, the U.S. has chosen to rely solely on deterrence to address China and Russia and Chinese ballistic missile threats to the homeland, and use homeland missiles defense only against rogue nations. 1. Abandon the existing policy of not defending the homeland against Russia and Chinese ballistic missiles, and focus on how to improve defense as the Chinese and Russia and Chinese missile threat increase at an unprecedented rate. 2. Invest in future advanced missile defense technologies like direct energy or space-based missile defense that could defend against more numerous missile threats. Invest in oh my fucking god! We're still going. I'm so tired. I'm hungry. Too bad, so sad. So the Heritage Foundation are just being morons and don't want to deal with Russia. That tracks. I know, right? Invest in a new track and intercept capabilities. The advent of hypersonic missiles and increased number of cruise missile arsenals by threat actors poses a new challenge to our missile defense capabilities. 1. Invest in cruise missiles defense of the homeland. 2. Accelerate the program to deploy space-based sensors that can detect and track missiles flying on non-ballistic trajectories. I feel like all of this was already stated earlier, but whatever. Accelerate the glide phase interceptor, Jesus fucking Christ, which is intended to counter hypersonic weapons. Author's note, we did it! Oh my god! Author's note, the mission of the Department of Defense is to provide the military forces needed to deter war and ensure our nation's security. This chapter provides a blueprint, no it doesn't, to ensure that the department can meet our national security needs. Its preparation was a collective enterprise of individuals involved in the 2025 presidential transition project. All contributors to this chapter are listed at the front volume, but Sergio de la Pena and Chuck DeVore deserve special mention. The author alone assumes responsibility for the content in this chapter, and no views expressed herein should be attributed to any other individual, except that we are a group, and we said we're a group, and that this is supposed to be a culmination of all conservatives and their positions and what they should want. Okay, I will slow scroll again over top of the end notes, so if you would want to look at any of the citations, here they are. Thank you, Hawkskull. Thank you guys for joining me so far through this. Holy fucking shit, end me, end my life, get me out, what the fuck. May I suggest switching from one chapter to a stream of max 2 hours for the sake of my voice? Yeah, that's what I was kind of... I didn't realize it was going to take me nearly 4 hours, or 3.5 hours to read through this chapter. I really thought it would only take me 2. It's because I didn't look ahead to see how far it was. Oh, fuck me, dude. Oh. Whew. What do I think of your boy, Chris Miller? I think he is long-winded... I think he's a long-winded, bloviated, bloated windbag and needs to learn how to fucking say things in a more concise manner that uses less word salad of bullshit. I also think he's a bigot and he should fuck off. Oh, I also think he's self-contradictory. Oh, and I also think, last thought about your boy, I think that he needs to stop. He needs to understand that his solutions are actually a part of the problem rather than actually informing a solution. Because, again, this isn't a blueprint. A blueprint would have, like, details about this unexplicit problem. This is all vague bullshittery. This is all posturing. None of this is real. This is pretend. We'll scroll this down a little bit. I hope their chapter on defense could be the longest one. I hope so. I don't know. Could somebody want to look ahead? Does somebody want to look ahead and see how doomed I am? I feel like, yeah, it's a LARP. It feels like a LARP. This is a LARP of people who think they know what they're talking about. I feel like this almost feels like fan fiction to me. LARPing government. LARPing officials. Good lord. Presidential transition project. Ugh. Yeah, we're still gonna do art. We're still gonna do art later. I might just take a little bit of a longer break and not start until 7. Normally I'd take like an hour-long break and start at 4, or I would take an hour-long break and start at 6, but I think I'm gonna take 2 hours and start at 7. Just to give my voice a break. So we'll be doing that on Twitch for anybody interested. Also, those are available for members, so if you are a member, feel free to check that out. Yeah, we're gonna play the video. We'll play the video. That's only 5 minutes, so we'll be fine. I'm just making sure you guys can get dates on screen because I'm not reading them all out. Because that'd be so hard. It'd be awful. That was a blank page, and we are on 5. Good job. Hooray. Yeah, if you want to catch the Twitch streams but you're not into Twitch, or if you want to catch the Twitch streams but you're not available, they are available for members. Thank you, Manya. I will check it as soon as I'm done here. Unless you tell me right now if you need me to check it while I'm still live. Alright, let's take a listen to this. In a slightly altered timeline, you could have worked with him. Oh, really? I mean, there's nothing saying you can't now. Take their money, steal their money. It's your money now. I'm here for that. Alright, you guys ready? Hopefully you can hear this.
Chair now recognizes Ms. Presley from Massachusetts.
Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. You know, although the subject matter of today's hearing is to be expected, it certainly makes it no less offensive or frightening. My Republican colleagues very often like to quote Dr. King, I don't know, maybe for some faux...
Sorry, I still have this as Comic Sans from Aaron. Let me just fix that real quick. I'm sorry. Let's go back to like your... No, not that one. No. Where's like just the regular one? Is this that's not the regular one. That's not it either. I think it's this one. I think that's the regular one. Okay. I'm just gonna put this here. Is that fine? Alright. Start again. Okay, here we go. You're stuck in Toronto instead of being a part of this. Oh, what a shame.
Chair now recognizes Ms. Presley from Massachusetts.
Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. You know, although the subject matter of today's hearing is to be expected, it certainly makes it no less offensive or frightening. My Republican colleagues very often like to quote Dr. King, I don't know, maybe for some faux civil rights credibility or to pervert his words to suit your extremist needs, while working actively to undermine his legislative legacy. Republican attacks on the EOC are part of their broader efforts to weaken civil rights protections. One of their goals plainly laid out in Project 2025, a 1,000-page bucket list of extremist policies. Mr. Berry, Chapter 18 of the Project 2025 manifesto is about the Department of Labor, and you are the author of that.
Oh, I am not that far yet, but they're already discussing labor like this in the in chapter whatever the fuck chapter around 4 of the military.
That chapter, correct?
Lead author, yes. There's others too.
Yes, you are. I believe the American public should know exactly how you and the Republican majority that invited you to testify today want to sabotage the EOC, rewrite the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and push all of us back to an era of Jim Crow racism. I'm shocked that my colleague across the aisle was in disbelief at our characterizations and assertions of racism and discrimination when even former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said the Republican side of the aisle looked like the most restrictive country club in America. We all know that Make America Great Again is about making America white only again.
White only again, straight only again, cis only again, men only again. Don't get me wrong, I think that black women would suffer more than a white woman under these circumstances, but it's still not good for white women either. In totality. Including straight white women, let alone but what if you were a black lesbian woman?
The first page of Chapter 18, Project 2025, complains about how the Biden administration has been fighting for racial equity. On the next page, it calls for eliminating data collection on race and ethnicity in employment. On the page after that, it calls for rescinding an executive order signed in 1965 that prohibits discrimination in hiring by contractors. Mr. Berry, do these terrible ideas sound familiar?
I feel like we're going to have to watch this again because they're also describing that for the military as early as Chapter 4. And actually, as early as the foreword. It's in the foreword.
They're great ideas.
These terrible ideas sound familiar? Of course they do. You came up with them. Mr. Berry, I find it shameful to advance a vision attacking the very policies and agencies that have helped Black Americans secure jobs, earn a living, and provide for our families. This Project 2025 plan is policy violence, plain and simple. Its authors have placed such a large target on the EOC because of the incredible work the EOC is doing today. Last year alone, the agency filed more than 27,000 charges of race-based discrimination. These workers and their families have a pathway to justice, accountability, and healing because of the policies and regulations that Project 2025 is trying to get rid of. Ms. Wiley, how would workers be harmed by Project 2025's commitment to undermining crucial protections that are enforced by EOC and other federal agencies?
Well, essentially, it guts the ability to both be able to have the rights and have enforcement and protection of the rights that we already have.
Ah, yes, make America great again with rights and freedoms for us and nobody else. Also, ostensibly limiting your own freedoms while you're at it, MAGA people, by the way. For anybody MAGA out there, you're limiting your own freedoms while trying to shit on other people for having freedoms. Sounds like the real American dream, right? Definitely not anti-American. Definitely not anti the entire point of America and its establishment.
and we've been seeing improvements and advancements when we have been enforcing them. And I'm also deeply concerned with any suggestion that we should not be collecting data or that labor rights, the rights to organize, which has been so important for workers across race, including white men, to ensure that they're getting fair wages and safe working conditions. All of these are actually in that chapter, and they threaten our workplaces for people who are white, for people of color, for people of all backgrounds in this country. And I think that's why we all need to be concerned, because it really is about all of us.
That's right. They threaten our workplaces for every person who calls this country home. EOC offers essential protections that create workplaces where all of us can thrive, but Project 2025 aspires to be the realization of a decades-long crusade by Republicans to strip away this key pillar of the Civil Rights Act. As a founding member of the Stop Project 2025 Task Force, I look forward to showing and telling the American people exactly who you are, Mr. Berry, along with your extremist friends. I urge my colleagues to join me in building the inclusive world we know to be possible, one in which everyone, is there something funny?
No.
I didn't think so. Nothing funny about this.
Fucking got
And in
him.
honor of my departed mother and for my 15-year-old daughter, I will do everything possible to stop you from building the world that you were hell-bent on doing. I urge my colleagues to join me in building the inclusive world we know to be possible, one in which everyone can show up to work free from discrimination. Thank you. I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Gosar from Arizona.
I applaud this woman. She bonked the fuck out of that man, like just right over the head with a bat. I approve that, and I look forward to. I think it's fine to end on what she had to say, because I think there's nothing I can add to that. What I will throw onto the end, as a side related note, I kind of hope that all of the authors and individuals involved with writing this project get tried for treason. That's what I hope. That's what I think should happen. I think they should be tried for treason. I think they should be listed as terrorists towards America, because everything that I've read so far is up to is wholly anti-America, and I think it's wholly against the American people. And I think they should be held responsible for even proposing such a fucking piece of legislative nonsense. I'll be live later doing some art and talking about some other shit, but whatever. But that'll be on Twitch, so go join me over there. Check this lady out. She was awesome. The video was linked. I'll link the video. Actually, I'll link it in the side chat for you guys, so you guys can check it out if you so desire at your own rate. I think that was the right one, right? Wait, was that the right thing? Was that the right one? Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure that's the right one. I'll link it again just in case it's not. There you go. Let's remove that. There we go, that one. Other than that, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm not looking forward to that chapter. Chapter 18 sounds like it's gonna make me very, very, very angry. But that's my hope. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for joining me. Leave your comments down below if you're so interested, and if you want me to see if I can take each of these branches of military that they just discussed and see if I could bring on somebody who is from the military, of that section of the military, to discuss what was proposed here, I'm more than happy to do so. I think that is treasonous. I think it's absolutely against the American government and the laws, because they're talking about the way they're going about this. But that's just my opinion. And I think they should be tried for it. I'm going to get on here. Thank you for joining me. I will give Pelka boop. And I'll see you guys on Twitch in a few hours to do some art and maybe relax a little bit, because this is awful and terrible. And you know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to do it to you again. I'm going to let Markiplier take us out.
I disagree infinitely about the way that was dumb, and I hate it. And I hate it. By the way, I hate it. I think it's dumb, and I hate it. And I think that it's dumb, and it's stupid.